We will now call this meeting to order at 12:22 p.m. We will start with a roll call for the record. I am Chair Dr. Carmen Solson, and I am present. When I call your name, please indicate if you are present. Vice Chair Utz?
Present.
Board Member Anderson?
Present.
Board Member Herndon is not present. Board Member Johnson Davis, also not present. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is executive session. Do I have a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing land, legal, and personnel matters?
So moved.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there and seconds the motion? Is there any discussion? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Do I have a motion to exit executive session for the purpose of discussing land, legal, and personnel matters where no votes were taken?
So moved.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Johnson Davis seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries unanimously. All right, we will now call the pre-work session to order at 2:52 p.m. We will start with a roll call for the record. I am Chair Dr. Carmen Solson, and I am present. When I call your name, please indicate if you are present. Vice Chair Utz?
Present.
Board Member Anderson?
Present.
Board Member Herndon? Not present. Board Member Johnson Davis?
Present.
Thank you for joining us today for our Board of Education pre-work session. Our board meeting cadence allows board members to prepare for upcoming regular meetings through pre-work sessions. These sessions are typically more casual and are primarily for information gathering. No formal votes will be taken. We will begin our pre-work session with a discussion of our next book study. All right, board members, last week was the Georgia School Board Association's annual summer conference. I would like to begin today with your reflections before we dive into the book study discussion for next year. Anybody, everybody.
One of the things that stood out to me and made me have a whole lot of hope for the direction the universe is moving in was how quickly our student board representative was immediately able to identify any artificial intelligence created images or videos that were used in any of the presentations. Gave me some hope that, that we're going to be able to evolve with it. Is that not correct?
Well, hopefully it won't get better than that.
I enjoyed working with Dr. Whitaker, our new student board rep, and board members from other areas of the state. And I just love any opportunity to be reminded that it really isn't about me. And the more we can learn, and I mean we as a board, but all people involved in public education, and what we can focus on, I think the better for all students.
I've really come to enjoy going to GSBA. I really like to see other school districts, interact with other board members, especially to see other school boards outside of the metro area. It's always amazing to see what they can accomplish. I think it's very easy to get siloed into what goes on in Decatur, which is appropriate. I mean, we work here, we live here every day. I think the big theme I saw from that conference was how much other school districts were doing with CTAE or career pathways. A lot of school districts had focused on the fact that not 100% of their students were college bound, and that is okay. And they had figured out ways to kind of, I don't want to use the word target, but to kind of grow those students as early as maybe 8th or 9th grade. There was one school district that was kind of on the Savannah coast that had a big need for kids in the fishing industry, and had figured out how to not only grow them into kids that were actually on boats fishing, but maybe they repaired boat engines or worked for commercial boat industries. And so I felt like that was some area that we could be inspired from, not only figuring out ways to grow our CTAE program outside of some of the pathways that we have, but making sure our students realize that whatever you want to do and whatever pathway you're on is cool, and whatever that looks like is cool too. And sometimes there were some kids that had some vision of what they wanted to do and didn't quite know how to figure it out, but they found a mentor. And sometimes it wasn't in the school system, but it was in the community. So I think strengthening those relationships with community members that can make those kids college and career ready. So emphasizing them both equally, college and career ready. So if they're not going to college, but they're ready to get a job. So when they walk across the stage, whatever they do is successful. And I thought that was really inspirational.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of AI, CTAE is effectively AI proof, right? There's not going to be a robot repairing a boat engine in the commercial fishing industry soon, right? Like that's, and so that kind of stood out, and I would agree as an area of focus. I really enjoyed, this is the second year that we've provided a perspective on student representation on the board, right? And so when we've presented it before at GSBA, it had tended to be smaller districts that attended. And what stood out this year is that we had Gwinnett taking a look at it. We had APS taking a look at it. We had DeKalb County representatives there. And so it does look like the state is, and a number of districts within the state have been paying attention to what we're doing and trying to take a look at how to figure it out for themselves. One of the things that really stood out in the feedback that we got, and I know, Dr. Whitaker, this is kudos to you and your staff for doing this, providing all of our documentation publicly so other districts can follow it as a roadmap and, you know, pick and choose what's relevant for them and use what we provided as a template. Really, that feedback, we heard that loud and clear, how appreciated it was that we had done that. So kudos to everybody in the room for making that happen.
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, I did love that speaker, the guy that was painting. I don't think I've ever, and I loved how it was so, humor and humanizing, so I don't know anyone else, but he was fascinating. So kudos to GSBA for finding it.
Thank you. All right. The governance team is committed to growing. Annually, we engage in a book study that adheres to our locally adopted book training program required under State Board Rule 20-2-230. We look at our GSBA self-assessment results and determine an action plan to support our growth in areas where we need to develop. In January, we determined, 2 standards on which to focus. Domain 1, which is governance structured. C standard, the board acts as a policy-making body separate from the roles and responsibilities authorized to the superintendent. The elements are: the board establishes and follows written policies governing its work in compliance with the state constitution, state law, local legislative acts, and policy. Second, the board fully supports and recognizes that operational issues are the responsibility of the superintendent and the school system personnel. Domain 3, board and community relations, B standard. The board develops policy, communication, and engagement of all stakeholders, which support the strategic plan, desired culture, and continuous improvement of the school system. Elements. The governance leadership team develops and supports the implementation of a communications plan aligned with the school system's strategic plan. The governance team formally and informally communicates to stakeholders its strategic plans, desired culture, and improvement needs, and student performance expectations, progress, targets, and results. The governance team and individual members' communications demonstrates transparency of intentions, actions, decisions, and successes, progress statuses, benchmarks, and barriers to achievement of goals and performance targets. The governance leadership team will implement a communication plan consistent with Domain 8, which is ethics. Dr. Whitaker, do you have any suggestions for us?
Yes, I do. So I will say, one, I did ask if anyone had any suggestions, and everyone's like, what happened? You did not. So what do we do? A couple of things. One, I contacted GSBA. You know, Ms. Bernath has been working with us a lot in our board development, and so asked her. And also, I paid attention at not only to this year's GSBA, but GSBA in the winter when we have attended in the past, to really think through what are some of the anchor texts that are constantly referenced. And so, you know, Melinda does a phenomenal job, so she went ahead and said, well, I'll get you a sample. And then getting a sample means one. So I said, well, how do I get to you all summaries of the books? So you all have in front of you just a snippet from what Goodreads says about each one of these books, their ratings, their genre, what have you. And so for Standard 1, governance structure, when we look at Domain 1 governance structure, and specifically the standard that we called out as one we want to work on, it was about the roles between and the differences in the roles between the superintendent and the board. So there was this book, this first book, which is Improving School Board Effectiveness, a Balanced Governance Approach. I'm going to pause for a moment so you can kind of take a look at what it says that book is about. You don't, just take it, I'm just give you a chance to peruse it before I say what the next one is. And then the second one is what I would say is an oldie but goodie, in that trust comes up at every GSBA conference. Trust between and amongst the board members, trust between the board and the superintendent, trust between the governance team and the community, trust, trust, trust. And so This is a over 2 million copies sold, New York Times bestseller, but The Speed of Trust. And this is by Stephen Covey. So that would be books that would address specifically Domain 1 and the standard around the differentiation between the roles. When we were engaged in the board retreat with Ms. Bernath around community engagement and some of the things, because we've brought this standard, not this standard, but more so this domain up before, meaning Domain 3, Board and Community Relations. These were the two books that Ms. Bernath suggested. So these you're probably less familiar with. So if you turn your paper over, you will see the good reads for an explanation and rating for those. And I'll give you a moment to peruse, and then we'll talk it through. All right, the teacher in me has about 80% of the class has looked up to signal that they are about finished. And Board Member Anderson, so I know we are ready to engage. Talk to me. Which ones do you want to read? Which ones are of interest? You all didn't know which books I was going to pick, so this is very much feedback.
I picked Speed of Trust or Modern Day Strategies for Community Engagement.
Okay.
I picked Speed of Trust. I thought elevating engagement was interesting, but I didn't know if it was pertinent to us necessarily. I might just read it on my own. I think modern day strategies also I would put second, and then school board effectiveness I would put last, just because I feel like we've read.
Yeah, I agree about the school board governance approach. I do feel like we've done that. And I also feel like when we read those books, we have a tendency to say we're actually doing it fairly well. I don't feel like that's a particular gap that we have. I do think that trust, and specifically trust with the community, is an area that we can work on. But when I think of the root cause of some of that, the trust issues, it's communication. And I think that we routinely bump up against some of the limits of our current approach to communication. And I think that if I were to pick between the two that I think most directly address that, that's the Speed of Trust and the Modern Day Strategies for Community Engagement. Having read Covey stuff before, it's a lot of, I have found it to be very self-evident, a lot of the things that are there. And so what I like about Modern Day Strategies is that it's talking about actually using, it sounds like it's a book that is talking about providing actual concrete strategies to bring up and improve community engagement. And so I'm a strong preference for Modern Day Strategies and a weak second for Speed of Trust, and the others probably not on the list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also, my first choice would be Modern Day Strategies. Looking at the authors, seems to be a local author, and I'm intrigued by her background as a thought leader on cultural competence, equity, facilitation, and stakeholder engagement. I like the combination of those things, and I'm interested in reading her book.
I like modern day strategies. for all those reasons you guys.
Thanks. Well, I think modern day strategies is it.
That was.
Yeah, like real easy button. I did see a new billboard for that. I think it's coming back. Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, board. We look forward to reading modern day strategies. All right, Dr. Whitaker, please introduce the next item.
Thank you, Chair Salton. Introduced last year to the board was the BMOP, otherwise known as the Board Management Oversight Plan. And the BMOP serves as a guide for when the board and the community will receive updates on our work. You have a copy of the proposed BMOP 2526 in front of you. It is organized by month horizontally and by strategic accelerator vertically. The document has been crosswalked with the all-indicator strategic plan to ensure that updates are provided on all 16 of our strategic plan objectives within one school year. Additional columns highlight student outcome data, the budget calendar, and on development. Not specific of what that policy is, but what would be included of the month we would potentially bring forth a revision or brand new policy through the process. So for this part, what clarifying questions, if any, do you have for what BMOP is? What would you like to see included that may be missing in the 25-26 BMOP? And is there any additional feedback you have for 25-26?
Where does PBIS, what category does that fall under?
Are you talking policy or are you talking board presentation?
Board presentation.
Board presentation, that would be in building and sustaining and engaging an inclusive culture. We typically would talk about it in the state of student support services, which is in December. We could call out that would be a part of that presentation.
Okay. Well, it will come up under discipline or student outcome, but
It's kind of part of.
that's all it's still.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's why you have discipline, best, and attendance are the data points that would be in there.
We do have some information on DISPRO in October too, though, correct? If that's what it looked like. So, I mean, specifically relevant to discipline, disproportionality.
Yes.
Am I reading that right?
Yes, that's MTSS, but not PBIS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but
We can call out PBIS data in December. I'll add that. Mm-hmm.
I had a few questions or thoughts as well.
Mhm.
So one, PCRPI in October, is that because it's only calculated and shared in September?
Yes, and that's October tentatively because we rely upon the state to release it.
Sure.
So typically, the state would release it September, early October. But if they don't release it in October, I can't give it to you. And also release it fully unembargoed.
Sure. And so I think we have some things that are obviously aligned with other entities, right? Like AP scoring, milestone scores, but other things we have. And so when I looked at cultivating and retaining quality professionals, I see that in March, we would get a presentation about staff climate surveys and contracts. I guess I want to know why we don't look in May, right? The school year has ended, now we get to see how many teachers signed so, you know, we had a presentation in March, right? This year, but then by the time May rolls around, what are we really looking at? And then does the state of HR then report that are returning, the administrators that are returning.
Yes, all of that is in it. So the reason why you wait until August, because the entire school year is ended. If you're reporting, you can't provide a state of in the midst of the season. And so the season really starts in March, which is why we started in March, the communication. And then you have what would be the reporting of the conclusion, which would occur in August.
Okay. So then I guess the next question is this, I tried to look for it, is this on, or will be on Assembly, or is it on Assembly? or
It's on our website.
That's what I thought, okay, so then, are
And
there
we can
more?
post it on the
Yeah.
landing page assembly. I
Well-
think it might be there already, but I don't know.
I think it's more to do with like, for the general person, like we're talking about community engagement. So what is the state of HR? Like, do we have actual benchmarks or descriptors in this plan, or is it just a kind of topical citing of agenda items?
No, I would say the KPIs that are in the strategic plan are what those objectives are that the board is, has over answering the next in the strategic.
So would it be too complicated? Only because we have oversight in there, right? So essentially, if we're talking, again, I'm thinking of the book, and y'all tell me if I'm complaining issues, then could we not take this plan and with the topical issues that are cited here, the KPIs in some kind of abridged way under that, or then, you understand what I'm saying? Because it sounds like people have to go to two different documents right now.
Yes,
The BMOP and the KPIs.
so we can link,
Okay.
put a hot link
Okay.
to it. The strategic, this is your calendar.
Yeah.
So that kind of you'll know the roadmap, and we can link it.
Okay, that's it. So then I do have another question. So we get a presentation in March of the staff climate survey. When do we find out strategies or actions in response to this?
It's typically done
With it?
with,
Okay.
yeah.
Then I have another question, and this is for everyone. So when I looked at building and sustaining, engaging, and inclusive culture, I just wondered why we put art and athletics there versus student success in all areas.
I will say it was there when I
Sure.
arrived, so I didn't move it. It is a way to build, oh, wow, that is rain. It is a way to build a culture.
Yeah.
So, and to sustain that culture.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one thought. I think we talked about this in Savannah. GSBA tends to release its legislative priorities about maybe 3 weeks or so before the actual conference, and then we ultimately vote on those legislative priorities, the delegate vote. So I think that should be somewhere in the May.
April, May timeframe.
Yeah, I don't know if it's out in April, but it's definitely, I think, out in May.
Mm-hmm. GSBA delegation, so that would be a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would we want to maybe make it a part of that board retreat or as a part of the board meeting?
I think,
The retreat.
yeah, I felt like this year I feel like it was, most of the topics were relatively straightforward, but it was a lot of them.
Which is, that would lend itself to the retreat, right? Where we can just have a larger, more longer, frankly,
Yeah.
robust conversation. Yeah.
Either.
I have a proposed topic for the September. I think, a deep dive on the full capital discussion around the ECLC, the work that's going to be done on the high school, the funding methodologies, and all of the options that we have in front of us would be a good thing to discuss. And it's fine if we don't have all of the answers. I think we just want to be transparent with the community about what we know, what we don't know, what we'll know at what point, and, you know, kind of the didn't see in here in the BMOP a top, I mean, I get that in the 9-9 board meeting, we're having a capital plan discussion, but that's much larger than just ECLC. I think that having an ECLC specific conversation might be, helpful.
Yeah.
I just see you getting ready to point at the
Yeah,
but that's the
but
two-way conversation. I feel like that's relevant with the community.
100%. The only community meetings we really outlined was budget development,
Yeah,
because
sure.
that's on that calendar, but typically the content for the community meetings evolve from our conversation during that time, so
Yeah.
I agree.
I feel like we probably have enough data points now to say that's a highly contending,
Of course.
a high contender for topic.
Perfect. Dr. Johnson Davis, do you have anything?
No.
No?
No, I just thought of something,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's fit into all these things, but we did the piloted cell phone, or the high school did, excuse me, I think the high school did, and then didn't the state effectively say K through 8, you cannot have a cell phone?
That's going, not next year,
Okay.
but the year after that.
So I guess that's more operational, I got it.
Anything else? Okay. Awesome. So now, thank you, board. In the spirit of continuous improvement and board and community engagement, what are the strengths and opportunities for the current order of the board meeting? And do you want to make any changes to it for the 25-26 school year?
So, I've heard community feedback that we often hear not often, but we have always heard public comment after the votes have been taken. And so, I think that we should hear comment before, we should, gain that feedback before. I am concerned about how we do that in a meeting, because then I don't want to, the times, could be a barrier to folks being able to participate. So, if we moved it up, my recommendation would be to do it after chair comments, so that if folks have already signed up to make a public comment, maybe there's something that they hear in superintendent's comments or the chair's comments, they may want to also add that. But I know that I'm just hoping with the time that falls, because our meetings, our start times vary,
Mm-hmm.
hoping that won't be a barrier on parents.
And there is always the virtual option. So if anyone is not able to be present, they can still sign up and come in virtually for public comment.
But the real concern, though, is whether they're in the office or work, right? I mean, like, that's not.
Or on the train
Or-
where you don't have service options. I understand the concern.
Yeah, I think that has been kind of a point of discussion, is that public comment is at the end. So after all of the votes, not only have all of the votes been taken, but all of the discussion on a lot of the items that people have to speak on happens. So I think there's pluses and minuses to both. If we move it at any point to the beginning of the meeting, not only is it going to be earlier, but the time is going to vary. So, meeting to meeting, depending on what the agenda looks like, it could be at 4, it could be at 4:15, it could be at 3:45. It totally depends on what the agenda looks like. Right now, it's anchored at 6:30, but it has that ability because it's the anchored endpoint. But I think there's ups and downs to both. If we would rather people come in before we vote, then the trade-off is that A, it's going to be earlier, and B, it's a high likelihood that meeting to meeting, the time could vary.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'm wondering, because, I hear different things, like, why are y'all starting at 12? So typically, when we're voting on something, well, it's always an ask, right? Like, we put stuff up, have to, by law. But is that another one of those like engagement pieces where then we are making sure that people know a month out, we'll be voting on that next month, so therefore, they're coming to that meeting. So it's almost like a little bit of a lag, am I making sense?
Yep.
And that's what allows for then, or at least create another opportunity, if we haven't done a good enough job there, next month, we're voting on this, so if you want to come to public comment and, you know, be heard, does that make sense?
Yep.
Highlighting what we'd be voting on a month earlier, when possible.
Yes, I would say for when possible, so we do list that in the BMOP. So example, budget calendar for action is in October. When it's on the BMOP, it says when it's for discussion or approval or things of that nature, it's typically, the calendar is pretty routine. That's one of the reasons why you provide the BMOP. And you also received the board preparation calendar. We didn't talk about it, but basically the days everything goes live in Assembly, when the agenda is set, all of those sorts of things. So
I also want to, maybe this might be an unpopular point of view, but I just want to call, attention to it, that the principal issues that we hear through community comment aren't necessarily related to votes that we're taking. They're almost certainly related to general policies or things that are in the atmosphere at the time, and they aren't something that we're necessarily voting on. It's still really important feedback for us to hear and us to get, but it's not necessarily directed towards a vote per se. And so I would just want us to kind of keep in mind that I don't want to say if it's not broke, don't fix it, but it's more, let's be careful not to make a change that makes it worse for the community without actually getting any of the benefits the community is trying to, accrue.
What some people are coming to give public comment on is in the discussion of the main board meeting. So it could be budget related and it's in the Lonita slides, or it could be teaching and learning related and it's in the discussion of, maybe what, maybe Karen is putting in her slides, and that might, us knowing what people think may drive our discussion, had we heard it instead of on the back end when we've already said what we want to say to each other.
Yeah.
And then we don't even reply to them, which I think maybe leaves some people feeling like they just came to yell at the strategy.
I wonder if we aren't able to identify, if we were, public comment comes up that is targeted towards a vote, I suspect there's a couple of topics that we will see that happen, and whether we want to make it be before the vote on those occasions, right? So for example, budget is a great example where people come up and say, don't change the millage rate or don't whatever. So that's great feedback to get in advance of a vote, but that's one meeting, right? And so I'm wondering if there isn't a way to thread this needle that leaves it at a fixed time where most people can access it, and we make the adjustments for the times where we know we have topics where we'll want to get that feedback in advance. Does that make sense?
I'm just concerned about consistency and us not misreading, or, how we may prioritize what may be a big discussion or important discussion. Somebody else may feel like getting panels on the school, might hold equal weight for them. And so I'm wondering, would it be worth it to put out a survey?
I say you could put it out, but I know that it's June.
Yeah.
Indicator would be, I just wonder what type of response you would get in June.
Well, we can leave it up for a couple. I don't, to Dr. Johnson-Davis's point, maybe we'd leave it up for a while. I don't know that I necessarily feel that we have to make a change right now, right today, just based on the information we have in front of us. I wouldn't actually mind seeking, I would actually like public comment on the topic before we take a vote on it.
Okay, so how about if we create the survey, leave it up all summer?
Yes.
Our next meeting isn't until August, so bring the results at the August board meeting, but that August board meeting, public comment would be at 6:30 unless we would change, based upon what the feedback says. But we will report that change before making the change. That would be that. That's how I would, Board Member Anderson.
If I'm not mistaken, this is a common practice, right? The order of items, including public comment at the end. I'm fairly certain it is, but we can look and see. So I think it has less to do with the time at which we have public comment, because I appreciate it being later, even though I do, struggle with someone who wants, because I think it's often more of feeling like I've been heard or had the opportunity to say something, given, our cadence. It feels to me more like we need the consistency of the time, because we can't guarantee with the others. And I've had an experience, as someone who goes to board meetings, when you're sitting there for 2 or 3 hours, then waiting to be able to speak because items lasted longer. And I don't think that's going to be conducive to, helping people feel like I feel like we need to take more advantage of the community meetings, possibly consider what I heard at the GSBA conference, which one school district, I think, when it had to do with budgets, even have a Saturday meeting. So I think we have other tools to help people who want to share, and I'm just not sure moving up the time is going to do it.
I don't feel strongly about putting the survey out there. I feel like this, between the 4 or 5 of us, we should decide how we want to, what we want the flow of our meeting to look like, and how we want to utilize the opinions that come forth. If we feel like we're better able to utilize those voices at the beginning of the meeting or the end, or we feel like we get more out of it with the time being anchored, then I feel like we should be able to figure that out amongst ourselves. I don't personally feel strongly that we're going to get a lot more clarity about how our meetings are structured from a survey, but that's just my thought.
I just would like to give the community an opportunity to give us their feedback. I don't think there's any risk in us putting a survey out there and informing, sitting at a email blast or whatever, letting folks know that it's out there. I don't know what risk there is in doing that.
I guess I do have to ask, is this survey addressing when the meetings start or just public comment? Because I've also heard people ask about the time of the meeting starting. So how are we determining what we're asking people?
The time of the meeting start is always going to be variable based upon building to the meeting, right? And so that either we have meetings that go until 1 o'clock in the morning, or we start roughly around noon. And I think I have children, so we're picking the noon. I tend to agree with Jana. I mean, if I were to vote today, I would say leave it where it is, fixed, unless I hear really strongly from the community that they'd like to see that changed, at which point I would take that under consideration. I just haven't heard it that level, which is why I think a survey might be worthwhile. And if we just don't get a lot of interest in the survey, then we leave it where it is and we continue forward.
Because what brought us to this point of discussion?
I think there were some folks in the community who felt like when they came to public comment, they were providing commentary on some items where the topic had already been discussed. To your point, some were voting items, but some may not be. So I think that, like I said, I think that's more of an item for how we feel like that feedback is best utilized by us. You can take public comment and decide if that's something we want to debrief about at the next meeting the next month, or do we feel like it's better utilized before the discussion item to drive our own personal discussion? There's pluses and minuses to both. We can leave it like it is, but I think that has been brought up by some folks because, you know, maybe they have a budget item that they think is problematic, but then we've already gone through all the slides, we've already debated the whole thing, and then they come and, you know, just comment on something that we've already spent an hour discussing, which, you know, and also with public feedback. So maybe that just might provide a little bit more clarity or reassurance that their voices are being heard. But you can definitely leave it like it is.
Well, I mean, I think if we want folks to if we wanted to make them feel like they've been heard, but I don't know that we've got enough feedback to make the decision, change it. I think it's just another opportunity for us to try to solicit more stakeholders.
Maybe we read a couple chapters into the book and see what any of the effective strategies in the book, right? But,
Because then I do want to add, though, are we talking solely about public comment when someone stands here, or are we talking about the feedback that we also constitute as public, whether it is for the budget, as we've done?
we're
or
talking
if
about,
doing
we're
it
talking
for the
about
meeting.
this public comment.
Okay.
The order of the board meeting. So it sounds like, what I'll do is draft a survey, or we will draft a survey, and then, bring that back to you all and see what it comes.
And I just want to make the point that the survey should convey explicitly the trade-offs that are there, right? Including flexible start time. If we move it to before, it may start at different times versus it being at a fixed time. You know, like they should understand they should guide us in the complexity of the choice, I think is what I'm saying.
Yes, so I'll bring you that.
Alrighty, thank you, board. I feel like this is a step in the right direction. Dr. Whitaker, please introduce the next item.
Thank you, Chair Sultan. I would like to call on Mrs. Amanda Lynch, Chief of Staff, to present one policy for feedback.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Oates, esteemed members of the Board, Superintendent Dr. Whitaker, and Student Representative Satra. Today we have one policy on the agenda for pre-work. As a reminder to the public, policies that are presented during pre-work are new business on which we are seeking board input. These policies are being shared to gather the board input and feedback that can be reflected in drafting and revising future versions. The policy being presented today is a revision to the existing policy IFBG, Internet Acceptable Use. The revisions are necessary in response to House Bill 351 from the 2024 legislative session. The statute requires boards of education to adopt policies that are reasonably designed to prevent and prohibit students from accessing dangerous materials online, to have procedures for implementing and consequences for violating such policies, and to establish procedures to address parent complaints. Much of this framework currently exists at our regulation level in our district's IFBG R1 Technology Use Requirements Regulation. But this statute tasks districts with shifting some of the language to the policy level. The red lines account for these changes. Please also note that the accompanying regulation, IFBG R1, will be also updated ahead of the start of the 25-26 school year. That's just part of our annual review process for our handbooks, regulations, and other documents as we prepare for back to school. So at this time, I'd welcome any board input on the proposed revision or the additional language as required by the state statute to board policy IFBG, Internet Acceptable Use.
Just a comment for clarity to the public, I believe. Again, this is for information accessed while the student is at school or information accessed on any school devices that the student may have at home. I just want to make that clear for the public as they're considering providing feedback. Yes, that's it. Okay, good.
Okay.
All right,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lynch, and thank you, board members, for the discussion. There being no further business, this pre-work session is adjourned at 3:38 p.m. And I think we have to go right into work session, and we shall. All right. We will call this work session to order at 3:38 p.m. Thank you for joining us today for our monthly work session. Dr. Whitaker, please introduce the first presentation.
Thank you, Chair Sultan. I would like to call on Dr. Dwayne Sproul, Principal of Decatur High School, to present our focus on all students becoming college and career ready.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Utz, esteemed board members, Student Board Representative Batra, and Superintendent Dr. Jimmy Whitaker. Thank you for the opportunity to present the strategic visioning for implementing college readiness and access at Decatur High School. This presentation reflects our commitment to preparing every student, not just to graduate, but to thrive in their post-secondary journey. Today, we will walk you through our data, goals, preparation, and how Navient and One Goal will assist us in closing the remaining gaps in student outcomes. Our implementation of Navient and One Goal is grounded in the district's strategic accelerators, particularly success for all students. This accelerator reinforces our belief that every student deserves access to academic planning, career exploration, and post-secondary readiness tools. Navient provides the platform, and One Goal is a program to turn that belief into action, ensuring students are equipped with the knowledge and tools they need to make meaningful decisions about their futures. At Decatur High School, our class of 2024 had a 95% graduation rate, and we are looking for similar success as we await the fall release for the class of 2025. Our rate places among the top performing schools in the state. This is a significant achievement that reflects the hard work of our students, the dedication of our faculty and staff, and the support of our families. However, while we celebrate this success, we also recognize that our work is not finished. A 95% graduation rate still means that each year, a portion of students are not completing high school on time and without a high school diploma, and are leaving us without a clear post-secondary plan. Our goal is to have every student with a plan, purpose, and the skills needed to succeed. This is where Navient becomes a powerful tool and partner in our work. Historically, Decatur High School has had over 80% of students planning to attend college. Navient gives us centralized systems to support their planning, monitor progress, and provide targeted intervention. But more importantly, Navient helps us close gaps by supporting every student already on college track. Key features and activities in Navient will facilitate every student having a plan, purpose, and the skills needed to succeed, including graduation and academic planning tools. Students can map out their academic plan and receive guidance to stay on track, reducing the risk for those who may be on the margins of graduation. Early warning and monitoring dashboards. Counselors and administrators can use Navient to identify students who are falling behind in coursework or post-secondary planning, allowing for early personalized interventions. Career and technical pathway exploration. For students not pursuing a traditional college route, Navient offers access to workforce data, career clusters, and skills-based training opportunities, ensuring those students are appropriately supported and valued regardless of post-secondary plan. Goal-setting modules. Navient helps students articulate short and long-term goals, reflect on progress, and stay engaged through personalized planning that builds ownership. Comprehensive post-secondary planning, whether students are bound for college, the military, the workforce, or even a gap year. Navient equips them with the tools to build personalized, actionable plans. By leveraging these tools across student groups, Navient will help us not only maintain our high graduation rate, but ensure that all students are graduating with clarity and confidence about their next steps. In short, we are not focused on getting students to the finish line. We are focused on launching them into successful, meaningful futures. Navient gives us the platform, structure, and data to do just that. Our goals are clear. By May 2026, 100% of students in grades 9 through 12 will complete Navient's required Bridge Build aligned activities, including career awareness, exploration, and planning. But beyond compliance, we are using Navient to equip students with self-awareness and decision-making skills that will help them align their strengths and interests with the right academic and career paths. Our implementation plan is both strategic and student-centered. We adopted a district-aligned scope and sequence that ensures consistency in delivery. Monthly counselor check-ins will track platform engagement and ensure follow-through. Targeted support, including makeup sessions and small group instruction. Will address gaps for new or at-risk students. Finally, we'll use data dashboards and Naviance to monitor student completion and adjust outreach in real time. Our commitment is to use Naviance not as a one-time activity, but as an ongoing guidance framework. We have already laid the groundwork this spring. Council completed 15 hours of training, focusing on platform navigation, career and college modules, and tracking tools. A pilot group of students explore key features like the career interest inventory and college search. These early steps have allowed us to ensure staff are equipped to support every learner. At Decatur High School, we believe that success must be accessible and attainable for every student. Our current achievements, including a 95% graduation rate and strong post-secondary outcomes, are a testament to the dedication of our educators and students. But we are not satisfied with excellence for most. We are focused on readiness for all. We recognize that closing the gap means reaching students who need more than academic support. They need personalized planning, relevant opportunities, and intentional guidance. Naviance allows us to do just that. It's more than a platform. It's a framework that empowers students to discover their strengths, explore diverse career and academic pathways, set clear goals, stay on track for graduation, launch from Decatur High School with a purpose. Through strategic implementation, staff preparation, and data-driven monitoring, Decatur High School is committed to ensuring that every student, regardless of background, ability, or post-secondary plan, has the tools and support needed to succeed. This is our vision, this is our responsibility, and Naviance is our next step forward. Naviance will be implemented in the 2025-26 school year as a whole school approach. The One Goal program was implemented in the 2024-25 school year to jumpstart the post-secondary process for juniors and seniors currently enrolled in Decatur High School who are qualified and elected to take part in the class. As a focus, we are preparing students not just for graduation, but for life after high school. One Goal centers its work around these essential benchmarks that help students make smart, sustainable decisions about their futures with the one goal of transitioning to post-secondary training in some form or fashion. The first is FAFSA completion, the gateway to financial aid. FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid, which is an activation point for students to access grants, scholarships, work study opportunities, and student loans to support studies and training after high school. A 100% completion is the goal. Because when students submit their FAFSA, they unlock real, tangible resources that make college possible. For the class of 2025, as of April of 2025, 83% of One Goal fellows had completed their FAFSA. This will be updated once One Goal finishes their final statistics for the school year. The second benchmark of One Goal is securing 3 or more college acceptances. This is a game changer for our students. When students receive multiple acceptances, they're no longer limited to just one path. It expands the options and flexibility, giving them the freedom to choose what truly fits their needs, academically, financially, and personally. It also reduces the risk that comes with college admissions, whether it's being placed on a wait list or receiving a denial. With more options on the table, there's less uncertainty and disappointment. Most importantly, it empowers informed decision-making. Students can compare financial aid packages, campus offerings, and program quality, and ultimately choose what's best for them. With 3 or more acceptances in hand, our students are in charge of their futures. They are making decisions from a place of strength, not of desperation. And that shift makes all the difference. The third benchmark is building a best fit college list. During One Goal in-class sessions, students are guided to research and select 4 to 7 institutions where they are most likely to succeed academically, financially, and socially. 86% of One Goal senior fellows submitted a best fit college list this school year. Together, these 3 steps form the foundation of One Goal's approach, ensuring students are not just getting their education, but getting through certification and degree programs with clarity and support to eventually earn a career path. Part of the third benchmark, the best fit college list has another level connected to it, quality enrollment framework, because it is critical to helping students identify and enroll in the most appropriate post-secondary experience, places where they're not just accepted, but where they are set up to succeed. 4 essential components are: first, academic match, ensuring students apply to schools that align with their GPA and academic performance and skill set. Second, financial fit, making sure the cost is manageable with aid and reducing future debt. Third, personal fit, looking for at a social environment, campus culture, and support systems. And finally, completion support, choosing institutions with the resources and track record of helping students not just start but graduate. Together, the framework creates a strong foundation for long-term success in post-secondary education. 80% of students were distinguished in their best fit list, met the best fit list quality threshold to include personal fit, academic match, completion support, and financial fit. One Goal is not a one-and-done program. It's a 2-year in-class high school model with wraparound support that incorporates SAT prep, GPA coaching, FAFSA help, and summer bridging all the way through the first year of post-secondary enrollment. As an educator with 27 years of experience, this is one of the best features of the program. Students transition from Decatur High School support structures to the One Goal support structure. This transition provides support for the first year after high school graduation. We're not just preparing students to graduate, we're preparing them to transition, enroll, and complete certifications and degrees. The National Center for Education Statistics reports students who return for their second year of college are significantly more likely to complete a degree. One of the things that truly sets One Goal apart is the hands-on, real-world experiences that it provides our students. Students have the opportunity to participate in college trips and in student summits hosted multiple times on college campuses, giving them a real feel for what college life is really like. These activities provide students with access to college campuses and begin to demystify the post-secondary experience via exposure. Students also participate in leadership development, learning how to advocate for themselves and take ownership of their future. They are connected to national partners like Yield and Beyond 12 who extend support well beyond high school and post-secondary life. One Goal doesn't just support students in applying to college, it helps them remove the financial barriers that too often hold them back after high school. Through enrollment grants, One Goal students can receive up to $750 per semester to cover critical costs like tuition, fees, textbooks, and academic supplies. Beyond that, there's an additional $500 available for eligible personal expenses, including housing, dorm rooms, or school supplies, and even childcare. These funds help address real-life needs that affect persistence in college. And to ensure every student is equipped for success, they also receive up to $400 toward their laptop. These supports play a powerful role in helping students stay enrolled, stay focused, and ultimately succeed. On the left, you'll see our eligibility alignment with One Goal GPA range, which is generally 2.0 to 3.1, while the Decatur High School student participation actually ranges from 1.4 to 3.86, which reflects our commitment to accessibility and the goal to reach as many students as possible. One Goal Fellows at Decatur High School represent 110 students, that's 57 juniors and 53 seniors with an average GPA of 2.95. This group of One Goal Fellows reflects the broader mission of One Goal, reaching students who are often underrepresented in post-secondary pathways and ensuring they're equipped not just to enter college, but to thrive there. As we celebrate the accomplishments of our graduating fellows, we also look ahead to the exciting journey they're about to begin. This year, our One Goal Fellows have been accepted to and will be attending 23 colleges and universities across 11 states. These include renowned institutions like Worcester Polytechnic Institution, George Mason, University of South Carolina, Appalachian State University, Georgia State University, Morehouse College, and many more. From public to private, HBCUs to Polytech and research universities, our students are spreading out across the country to pursue their dreams. As we look forward to 2025-2026, we remain committed to the full potential of this program. With your continued support, we can deepen impact, increase equity, and ensure every One Goal Fellow not only gets into college, but also gets through college. Thank you for your time, your partnership, and your belief in what's possible when we invest in every student's journey.
Thank you. Just to clarify a few things, so Naviance is the platform that all students will start using next year. And One Goal is the program specifically helping eligible students.
Yes.
Cool. So Naviance, I was reading about the students, but so I guess I have two questions. So first-year seniors, they'll be using Naviance to apply to college.
Yes, for part of the college processes, yes.
Yes, I mean, I've been using it for a few years as a teacher, so I wondered how parents are gonna be trained or, learn how to use it, since my understanding is effectively, you can't do a FAFSA without parental input. And I'm guessing most students applying to college need parent help, so will there be sessions for especially the senior parents who will be using this platform new? I assume any other.
As far as FAFSA goes, we haven't identified particularly for parents,
Yes.
but we do have workshops multiple times a year for FAFSA to make sure parents are understanding, because we know how FAFSA went, I think last year.
Sure.
It was a nightmare, so
Yeah.
we've done that for many years. We have a workshop that the PTSA sponsors, pizza, parents and students can come in to get that assistance to get to their process.
That's awesome. I think I'm just wondering more specifically about Naviance. So the seniors are gonna use it for the first time. Will there be any training for parents, or the seniors will tell their parents?
We could definitely make that happen.
Thank you.
Yes. Part, if you're bringing, Naviance is a holistic program that will bring in students, staff, and parents. So everyone has to get training.
And I went through and did, I think 4 or 5 lessons last week, just to make sure because I did some of the counselor training with them, but I wanted to kind of feel it like from a student perspective, when they start asking questions, and it kind of encourages students to be honest. Don't select the choices that people think you would pick, but pick what you really feel in your heart.
Mhm.
So as an educator, you wanted to come out and say, you should be a principal. But instead, I want to make sure I was being honest with myself. So it's very, the streamlined approach from what we was using with UScience, because it has these other things also. So it's kind of on steroids on one side and streamlined on the other, so students won't get as tired as they did doing UScience.
And then can I just ask, I'm assuming this is gonna happen too, so any recommending teacher has to go in Naviance, or the teachers are gonna be trained too?
Yes.
Thanks.
With the SAT prep, do you all do that during their one goal classroom time, or does that happen after school or Saturday?
That's a very good question. Last year it was done we do have SAT prep on the weekends, some, but it was done, I believe through Khan Academy. This year, with the gracious support from Dr. Whitaker, we are, using Appleroot, which is we met with them this week. We're going to incorporate not only for one goal students, but also an additional class during some of our third period time, which are tools for success. So all of our students in one goal will have access to that, which will include a trainer coming in physically into the room once a week, 90 minutes during that class time to provide safety prep for those
Nice.
students,
Okay.
both the juniors and the seniors.
And then with the college tours, how many tours did they do this year?
They did Kennesaw State. They also went twice to Clayton State. I was there for part of each of those.
Okay.
And they also, some of those also carried over with the Gents and went to Clemson and Georgia. Clemson was a little more of a challenge. They finally got there, but so those were the places they went. One of the things that we talked about with One Goal was to make sure we are diversifying that access, including it could be like a plumber pipe fitters program,
Mm-hmm.
so or technical college to increase to broaden out what kids are seeing, because right now we're only targeting it and the kids' GPA does not fit
Right.
those schools, then it's great to expose them, but you also want to say, hey, this is where your fit is right now.
Right.
You can get there later,
Right.
but based on what your performance is, you need to start here.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How much exposure is there in some of these platforms to international schools, if the students were looking in that direction?
I am not sure. That's a great question. I can definitely,
We can find out.
Okay.
I don't know.
Great.
I mean, I've written recommendations for students who are applying to, I don't know, McGill. I can't remember if it's in Naviance or, because I believe a student applying to 10 colleges may be using Naviance for 7 of them, and then other schools have their individual process,
Yeah.
which I think is different from the platform giving people, am I
A
correct? that, like,
suggestion. Mhm.
Decatur students can see a dot on a screen and see that, oh, one student with this SAT score from Decatur got into this college, or 5 students. So I think there's information and application.
I think it's important that we continue to promote the value of programs like this, because first of all, applying to college is costly. Taking SAT is costly. SAT prep is costly. So the more, opportunities we can give students in school where their, parents and families don't have to outsource these resources, I think the more successful our students will be. And then I think, like Board Member Anderson said, making sure that we bring their parents in so that they're clear about, which schools are going to be good fits, so that they apply to the right schools at the right time, so that they have options. I think, like you said in your presentation, it's such a game changer for a student to have multiple options on the table, so that they're applying from a place of options as opposed to, like you said, a place of desperation, because that's just a game changer for a student. So I think One Goal has really been a game changer for a lot of students. So I saw them at graduation with their stoles, and they were all just so proud. So
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, when I visited the middle schoolers, I was just so surprised how stressed out they were at college already. I was like, you don't need to worry, you're pretty high about in seventh grade. But even a lot of them said, the ones that had older siblings were like, yeah, I'm all right, I was an older sibling. But the ones that didn't and who didn't have parents that were informed, just felt so lost and so stressed out. And so I really think that this will help bridge the gap, not just for juniors and seniors, but even like freshmen and sophomores. I have a very accomplished older sister. I still felt very lost. So I think this looks great.
Well, I'm committed to embedding career, college, and life preparedness in diverse and culturally relevant ways. I think this presentation today highlights at least two strategies that will assist us in ensuring that all students are going to be successful when they graduate from the city schools of Decatur.
Thank you, Dr. Sproul, for this presentation. During the pre-work session, I reflected on how the state is increasing access to diverse careers. The programming mentioned here supports how we are moving forward in this direction as well. And as the parent of a recent graduate, woo, go 2025, the ease of the application process would be greatly appreciated. Also at graduation, I noticed how many members of the class of 2025 had on their One Goal stoles. I am glad to see the programs are off to a strong start. Dr. Whitaker, please introduce the next item.
Thank you, Chair Sultan. I would like to call on a very dynamic team. Mr. Jarvis Adams, Chief Operations Officer, Mrs. Jennifer Burton, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Lonita Broom, Chief Financial Officer, and Mrs. Karen Newton-Scott, Deputy Superintendent, to share a comprehensive capital strategy to encapsulate our focus on cradle to career.
In March, more than 40 female Winter Guard students rehearsed until 10 o'clock p.m. because the gym, the only suitable space, was already booked for other extracurricular activities. Good evening, Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Hutt, esteemed board members, Superintendent Dr. Whitaker. I'm Jarvis Adams, Chief Operations Officer. Joined our Chief Financial Officer, Jennifer Burton, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. This presentation will demonstrate how each capital recommendation, beginning with a new early childhood learning center, initiates a domino effect that delivers on every element of the all-in Decatur strategic plan. Each project is interdependent, and by the end of this presentation, you will understand why we recommend proceeding on all fronts. These four board-approved pillars form a true domino effect, driving student success, strengthening culture, and deepening connection across the city schools of Decatur. Each accelerator on the screen reflects language you have already endorsed. Investing in real-world CTAE labs, in best-in-class early childhood learning center, ensures every graduate is ready for tomorrow's workforce empowered to pursue post-secondary options, and equipped for life beyond school. From a black box theater and a dedicated rehearsal studios to multi-purpose auxiliary gyms, CSD will create spaces where students explore passions, build confidence, and contribute to a vibrant school culture, fueling pride, engagement, and retention of exceptional coaches, teachers, and art directors. A new standalone ECLC modeled on College Heights best practices would expand access for families with the highest needs while providing a hands-on CTAE lab for early childhood education students. This sustainable facility lays the foundation for lifelong learning. By fully modernizing every building and ensuring ADA compliance, City Schools of Decatur will guarantee an inclusive, accessible environment where every learner, regardless of ability, background, feels connected, supported, and ready to thrive. As each domino falls, City Schools of Decatur's culture becomes stronger, student engagement deepens, and every child experiences the supportive facilities they deserve. The City of Decatur covers 4.2 square miles, and Decatur's high school's campus occupies 18 acres. Though land is limited, we have an opportunity to maximize every square foot and deliver top-tier spaces for our students and staff. Classrooms, labs, and practice venues strengthen our ability to recruit and retain exceptional coaches, CTAE instructors, and arts directors. Current facility constraints lead talented professionals to seek schools with superior infrastructure. The Early Childhood Learning Center will replace the overcrowded Fraser Center and simultaneously serve as a hands-on CTAE classroom for early childhood pathway students. This ECLC will work to close the achievement gap before kindergarten by providing high levels of school readiness. As literacy and number sense rise, the need for remedial learning will decrease, allowing teachers to foster continuous achievement and a lifelong love of learning. Every element of this proposal, from a sustainable early childhood learning center to expanded stages in a shared auxiliary gym, implements exactly what the board has already authorized. This request does not add extras, it simply fulfills those commitments. In short, Decatur High deserves world-class facilities that align with our brand and prepares every learner for success in a rapidly changing world. Our agenda outlines each phase of this presentation. 1, describe why CSD must invest now, focusing on a landlocked campus, evolving program needs, and the benefits to students and staff. Secondly, we'll provide a high-level overview of the interdependent capital projects that fulfill board-approved strategic accelerators. Next, we will explain one-time capital costs, annual operating expenses, and a braided funding model that maximizes available resources. Then we will show upgraded CTAE labs, fine arts facilities, and a shared auxiliary gym that translate into expanded student opportunities and deeper engagement. And finally, identify board actions required to advance design, procurement, and construction for the projected groundbreaking and completion timeline. Now, let's explore how we receive community input. Capital improvements must reflect genuine community collaboration. City Schools of Decatur pursued a multi-pronged engagement strategy, organized into 4 key areas, so that every stakeholder's voice shapes each project. First, we engaged the CTAE director, the staff, and leadership teams of the Fraser Center in College Heights, capture best practices, facility needs, curriculum, and required training to ensure our new early child learners enjoy a world-class learning environment. Next, through surveys and focus groups with parents, booster clubs, fine arts directors, Decatur High School leadership team members, CTAE directors and teachers, the fine arts department, and the athletic department, we were able to capture expectations for laboratory classrooms, shared spaces, equipment storage, and student safety protocols. We then moved to schematic co-design workshops. Path 1, workshops translated early childhood input into preliminary ECLC layout, ensuring that best practices from College Heights and Fraser inform every detail. Path 2 workshops with students, parents, CTAE instructors, fine arts directors, athletic directors, and the principal's leadership team captured requirements for reimagining the Fraser space at Decatur High School. Results from both path workshops led us through the process of schematic designs and multiple rounds of refinement to ensure all needs were addressed. Finally, the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the cabinet conducted a site visit to a leading early childhood learning center in Grand Rapids to observe cutting-edge design, secure drop-off procedures, and developmentally appropriate learning zones. In April, City Schools of Decatur leadership toured and evaluated Walton High School's robotics facility, widely regarded as the state's premier robotics field, to inform CSD's robotics lab enhancements and to support competitive readiness. We met with district advisory teams, including parents, students, principals, and community advocates to validate alignment with all in Decatur mission and reinforce local priorities. The outcome: every stakeholder sees this input reflected in each square foot. This co-owned plan aligns with City Schools of Decatur's strategic vision and helps us achieve the objectives of the plan and better our entire City Schools of Decatur community. In a moment, you will see an aerial map illustrating exactly how these ideas translate into the new campus footprint, showing each independent facility and how it unlocks the next. In the beginning, I referenced my first week here in City Schools of Decatur. I attended an indoor percussion and winter guard performance at the invitation of our band director. I was amazed by the talent on display. I was also surprised to learn that the winter color guard fields both a JV and a varsity team. Yet these students practice as late as 10 o'clock p.m. on a weekday evening while waiting for available space. Many of these color guard members are honor students enrolled in rigorous IB and honor courses. They shared how daytime rehearsal space would help them balance performance and academics, arriving to class energized and ready to learn. The band director shared how his staff misses dinner and evening time with their own families because they supervise late night practice and rehearsals. Athletic coaches and student athletes face similar challenges. Without adequate gym and field facilities, they juggle training schedules, academic demands, and late night practice. Imagine if performers had a dedicated auxiliary gym. They would rehearse during the day, perfect their craft without intrusion, and arrive to class rested and ready to learn. Imagine if our youngest learners at Fraser had a spacious, inclusive early childhood learning center instead of an overcrowded classroom. These scenarios are not hypothetical. They are daily realities. Our facilities domino plan addresses these issues head on, providing dedicated rehearsal spaces for performing arts, relief for athletic teams and coaches, and a state-of-the-art ECLC for early learners, fully aligning with the All-In Decatur strategic plan to ensure every student and staff has the environment that they need to thrive. You have seen how the stakeholder input shaped our, You have seen how stakeholder input has shaped our projects and why immediate investment is essential. As we look at the aerial map on the next slide, you will see how all four dominoes, Domino 1, Early Childhood Learning Center, the CTAE expansion, Fine Arts Enhancement, the auxiliary gym, literally interlock on our 18-acre campus. This unified footprint maximizes every square foot in a landlocked setting and fulfills each board-approved strategic accelerator. I'm going to point at the map behind you. Hopefully you can follow my laser pointer. In this top left corner is will be the home of the new Early Childhood Learning Center. A standalone facility modeled on College Heights and Fraser Center best practices. informed by a Grand Rapids site visit and other facility research, will replace the overcrowded Fraser Center. It expands access for families with highest needs and serves as a hands-on CTA lab for early childhood education students. If you follow my pointer to the bottom, you'll see green and orange boxes. Once early learning moves to the new ECLC, Fraser becomes an expanded CTAE program. Purpose-built labs for culinary arts, robotics, health science, and makerspaces with double capacity and allow new pathways such as sports medicine and allied health. So at the front of the school, a theater expansion. An expansion wing would tie into the existing theater area, providing dedicated spaces for theater, choir, band, orchestra, indoor percussion, winter guard, and dance. The addition includes ample storage for instruments, props, and costumes, solving a campus-wide storage problem. And finally, the box right toward the middle, at the bottom, is a new ADA-compliant indoor court designed for both athletics and performing arts. This facility ensures daytime practice for 1,200+ student athletes, indoor percussion, and winter guard. Sequence matters. The new ECLC vacates the Fraser. The Fraser becomes CTAE labs. Theater expansion and the auxiliary gym complete the chain. By interconnecting these four dominoes, Cater High creates a truly holistic environment, maximizing every square foot and ensuring our campuses matches the facilities of similar sized student bodies in schools in Georgia. Because our four interlocking dominoes span early childhood through high school, every CSD learner and program gains tangible advantages. Early learners, new standalone ECLC remodeled on College Heights and Fraser best practices, replaces overcrowded Fraser classrooms and provides developmentally appropriate learning zones. Expanded access for families with the highest needs, closing the achievement gap before kindergarten, raising literacy and number sense. Dual-purpose CTA lab for early childhood education students, preparing future educators. CTAE and career pathway students will have purpose-built labs for culinary arts, robotics, health science, makerspaces, doubling capacity and launching new pathways in allied health. Flexible shared learning zones support dual enrollment and work-based learning without scheduling conflicts. A dedicated JROTC ropes course integrated within the athletic facilities helps build leadership and physical fitness. Fine arts, connected theater expansion with dedicated rehearsal wings, supporting theater, choir, band, orchestra, indoor percussion, and winter guard and dance. Ample storage for instruments, props, and costumes. Athletics, the new auxiliary gym. Shared commons with the fine arts. We guarantee daytime practice for every team, balanced schedules, improved wellness, and stronger academic focus. Elimination of scheduling conflicts among athletics, arts, and community events. Capacity to add new sports and intramural activities without displacing existing teams. Every new facility and repurposed space is fully ADA compliant. Modern purpose spaces boost staff morale, strengthen school culture, and deepen community engagement, demonstrating CSD's commitment to excellence, inclusion, and connection. We will be future ready, designed for adaptability. These facilities can pivot to accommodate evolving educational models, emerging technologies, and shifting workforce demands, ensuring City Schools of Decatur remains at the forefront of K-12 innovation. Our facility domino plans address these priorities: dedicated rehearsal spaces for performing arts, relief athletic teams and coaches, and a state-of-the-art ECLC for every learner, fully aligning with the all-indicator strategic plan. Together, we build an environment where every CSD student and staff member thrives, united in purpose, pride, and possibility. Thank you, board members, for your vision and your leadership. Next, Jennifer Burke will detail how these spaces will enrich early childhood, CTAE, and fine arts.
Good afternoon, Board Chair Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Utz, esteemed board members, Dr. Jima Whitaker, and Student Representative Batra. The proposal for the early learning, the proposal for expanding early learning indicator is clear and urgent. It stems from a growing need for high-quality early childhood education across our community. Back in the 1980s, Mr. James Frazier, the director of our CTAE department at Decatur High, saw a learning gap. He noticed that student parents at Decatur High School needed support and wanted to add early childhood education as a lab program in the CTAE department. Quiet but determined, he gathered a committee and pursued his vision. Mr. Frazier added the early childhood program and it was later expanded to include a lab that provided on-site care for expectant and parenting students and Decatur High faculty. His vision became a reality in 1991 when the James H. Frazier Child Development Center was opened to honor his memory. Over time, as the teen pregnancy, those child care slots transitioned to serve our CSD staff. Today, while a few community families are enrolled and teen parents as needed, the Frazier Center primarily supports employees of City Schools of Decatur. With over 78% of our staff being female, the reduced cost and proximity to our schools makes the Frazier Center a significant recruitment and retention strategy for our district. What's keeping us up at night is that in our current location, we simply cannot expand to meet the needs of our families or even offer additional support to our own employees with young children. The space constraint is taking a real toll on our Frazier Center staff. Our Frazier staff should be applauded for loving what they do, doing it with excellence, and for their resourcefulness in stretching to make things work with the resources and space we have. They've mastered maximizing space, juggling staff schedules, and overextending themselves. And while we appreciate their sacrifices, we have to realize that it is unfair to the children, the staff, and the families they serve. It is not sustainable and will eventually impact morale, recruitment, and retention. So here's the opportunity. With the new Early Learning Center, we can alleviate these pain points. We'll have the space and structure to expand access, support family engagement, and deliver high-quality, developmentally aligned instruction. We will be able to better support our CTAE high school students who are exploring the early childhood pathway with a state-of-the-art learning lab. The new location is more centrally located for walkable access to early learning and care for families in the neighboring communities. But most importantly, the key benefit is student outcomes. When children enter kindergarten ready to learn, socially, emotionally, and cognitively, they thrive. And when we support families, we lay the foundation for long-term success, not just in school, but in life. We acknowledge several questions we've received about the new Early Learning Center, and we've updated our FAQ found on the website. At the end of the presentation, we will go to that FAQ so everyone can see where it is. CSD has award-winning music and theater programs and a robust visual arts program. We've been awarded Best Communities for Music Education for the 4th consecutive year. All middle school and high school groups who went to the Georgia Music Educators Association annual large group performance evaluation received superior ratings this year. This included band, chorus, and orchestra groups from both schools. The DHS Marching Band received all superior ratings at all 3 marching band competitions. The DHS Wind Ensemble was invited to play at 2 prestigious festivals. The DHS Indoor Percussion Group, think marching band but inside and just percussion, participated in a national competition ever. All of our music programs had students selected for All-State, and our chorus program tied for 1st in All-State, outperforming arts magnet schools. The theater arts program produced 1 middle school play, 1 middle school musical, 2 high school plays, and 2 high school musicals. They also earned 3rd place overall for our region at the GHSA one-act competition and produced a dinner theater collaboration with Culinary Arts. Musical theater had 3 Schuler Award nominees and 6 honorable mentions. The Schuler Awards are prestigious, modeled after the Tony Awards, and celebrate excellence in high school musical theater programs across the state. Our visual arts program curated and facilitated the visual art exhibition at the Solarium, showcasing over 600 pieces of art produced by students at every school and grade level, with hundreds of attendees each evening. All of this, and we're still adding courses and extracurriculars. New this year, we had 2 sections of music tech, and Beacon Hill added a steel drum band. The Performing Arts Center, or PAC, was built as an add-on to the gym complex. There's constant conflict over the use of space. The Performing Arts gets moved regularly because the PAC is shared with the whole district for a variety of needs. Sometimes the Performing Arts have to explore off-campus performance venues or hold performances in lunchrooms because the PAC is not available to reserve. The high school band room size and layout is inadequate for the program. The soundproofing is also inadequate. Percussion has often had to practice in the locker room. The marching band does not fit inside the band room, and in fact, it is not even possible to fit all of the brass and woodwinds in the band room at the same time. Lack of practice spaces sometimes mean practices until 9 or 10 p.m. at night. Lack of sufficient storage space and inability to secure the storage leads to very expensive instruments left unsafe and insecure. The orchestra room has space, but due to its location and layout, people pass through it, leaving instruments insecure. Accessibility to and from the orchestra room is also tough, having to get all of the instruments to the PAC and trying to carry cellos and double basses while navigating the stairs. Lack of storage and practice and performance space for all of the performing arts stunts the growth of our programs and keeps us from being as competitive as other programs. It has also contributed to turnover in directors. We just started offering the Fine Arts Seal this year for the first time ever. 28 awarded this year, and 8th graders are already asking about it. The Georgia Fine Arts Diploma Seal is a special recognition given to high school seniors who demonstrate a commitment and mastery in the fine arts. To continue to build this pathway and increase the number of fine arts seals, we need to offer more supports for the arts. We could grow band, chorus, and orchestra to even bigger. We can build the capacity to offer even more theater productions and shows. There are many arts courses that we could offer but do not currently have the space and capacity. For example, we have many accomplished dancers in our student body, but we do not offer dance. With the addition of the proposed black box theater, we will be able to offer more flexibility, additional performances, and more rehearsal space while the PAC is being used. We are great, but we could be even greater. Our CPAE department has grown into a strong pillar of college and career readiness. We offer high-demand pathways at the Decatur Career Academy, including culinary arts, early childhood education, and certified nursing, to name a few. We also provide engaging exploratory courses and programs at the middle and upper elementary levels to spark early interest and exploration. Since our last CPAE update to the board in February, we've had additional achievements. Our culinary arts program has completed the industry certification process. Our certified nursing assistant students have earned stackable credentials through dual enrollment at Georgia Piedmont Technical College. And students in the early childhood education and teaching as a profession proudly participated in our inaugural Future Educator Signing Day, celebrating their commitment to a career in education. Despite our achievements, limited physical space has caused scheduling and access issues. Popular programs like early childhood education and culinary arts see double the requests we can accommodate. We've had to limit how many students we can serve and when they can start. Both culinary and early childhood education limit entry to 10th grade. Our robotics field is in the back of a classroom, which you can see above, limiting participation. The reality is we are out of space and cannot launch new pathways in high-interest areas like health sciences due to facility constraints. In our most recent survey on April 25th, 15% of students surveyed would like to explore at least one pathway in the health sciences, and 21% of parents surveyed wanted health sciences as an option for their students. Currently, students with an interest in sports medicine only work informally with our Emory sports medicine trainer after school. They are operating out of a small closet-sized room that is hardly adequate for 2 athletes at a time. Because we lack a formal sports medicine pathway, the trainer graciously accepts students who have an enthusiasm but no foundation coursework. This means much of the time is spent teaching basic skills rather than advancing the student's knowledge and career readiness. The new auxiliary gym will do much more than support athletics. It opens the door for expanded opportunities in CTAE. With this space, we will be able to launch 2 new health science pathways, sports medicine and allied health. Both are aligned with strong student interest in medical careers and will offer hands-on experiences, dual enrollment options, and stackable credentials that lead directly to real-world opportunities. What makes this even more impactful is the shared structure of these pathways. CNA, sports medicine, and allied health all share the same year 1 and year 2 dual enrollment coursework. That means with just one dedicated CTAE classroom and lab space, we can support multiple pathways, significantly expand work-based learning, increase dual enrollment participation, and even support our athletic programs all through a single strategic investment. This future state brings even more value with the ropes course for our award-winning JROTC program, enhancing their leadership and physical training opportunities. It provides for CTAE and district STEM showcases and student competitions, bringing visibility to student achievement and fostering community engagement. Next, Mr. Adams will share on the current state of athletics.
Yeah, good evening again. Let's celebrate the remarkable accomplishments of our student athletes this year under the All-Indicator banner. Our varsity football team opened the season with a bang, named Fox 5's High Five Team of the Week, and head coach Felton was honored as Atlanta Falcons Coach of the Week by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Decatur Cross Country remains one of the top cross-country programs in the state. At Beacon Hill Middle School, both the girls and boys basketball team made deep playoff runs. The girls reached the county Final Four and placed 2 athletes on the DeKalb County All-Star team. The board thrilled fans in the DeKalb County League playoff with 2 All-Star selections of their own. At Decatur High School, our boys basketball team advanced to the GHS. 2 of our athletes earned first-team All-Region honors in Region 4. In the pool, 16 Bulldogs qualified for the finals at the GHSA State Swim Meet at Georgia Tech, breaking 5 school records along the way. And on the mat, 4 wrestlers represented Decatur High School at the GHSA State Wrestling Tournament, where Ronan Sims proudly claimed 3rd place in the state. Spring brought even more excellence. Our track and field teams, both boys and girls, qualified for state meet, and the girls' 4x800 team shattered the state record by 23 seconds. A special shout out to Sophie, our first student board representative, who earned 2nd place in the state 800 meter race. Across the field, our soccer squads both qualified for state playoffs. Boys and girls lacrosse captured area championships, earned high state rankings, and advanced to the Elite 8. and our baseball team punched a ticket to the state playoffs after an outstanding season. At Beacon Hill, the track teams placed third countywide. Together, more than 1,200 student athletes compete in 19 GHSA sports at Decatur High School and 8 teams at Beacon Hill Middle School, fielded over 50 teams. This year, 16 programs qualified for state tournaments and 26 athletes committed to collegiate sports. Proof that City Schools of Decatur Athletics is a powerhouse of talent, dedication, and community support. Our coaches, student athletes, and arts ensembles do an amazing job sharing space. Yet when 1,200 athletes and multiple fine arts groups all need the same court and stage, scheduling becomes a daily puzzle. This limitation pushes practices into late evenings and creates pinch points that no amount of teamwork can fully solve. It also on dedicated staff and impacts recovery time for our student athletes. Imagine if we unlock a dedicated auxiliary gym and shared commons. Every team and ensemble can train and perform when they need to, enhancing wellness and performance across the board. With a brand new auxiliary gym and shared commons, CSD athletes will step into a new era. Daytime practice slots for every program replace late night workouts, giving our students energy to excel in class and on the field. Coaches will reclaim precious family time, and emerging teams from yoga to ultimate frisbee will find their home. This facility isn't just a building, it's our commitment to elevating athletic performance, student well-being, and community pride. Today's proposal is more than just a sum of its parts. It's a four-domino chain that delivers everything our community has asked for, plus strategic enhancements. First, new early childhood learning center closes readiness gaps, doubles as CTA lab for workforce training, and expands high-needs family access. Enhanced CTAE labs, culinary, robotics, health science, and maker spaces that equip students with in-demand skills and boost local career pipelines. Connected theater expansion, dedicated rehearsal wings, dance studios, and secure storage empowering every ensemble to perform at their best. Auxiliary gym and shared commons, a separate ADA compliant court ensuring equitable practice for athletics and arts. As each domino falls, it propels the next, creating a holistic campus where early learning, career pathways, creative expression, and championship athletics all thrive together. We are delivering modern facilities that match our students' ambition and capacity. We humbly request the board's push to tip this chain into motion so we can begin design, funding, and construction to keep Decatur High moving forward under the All-In Decatur Strategic Plan. Dr. Lonita Broom will now outline how we will fund these transformative projects responsibly.
Good evening. Now that we have been provided with the why we need to invest in the sustainability of CSD success per the district strategic plan, and what we need to invest in the proposed capital plans of improvement and enhancement, it's time to discuss how we plan to invest in the financial impact of the entire bundle from cradle to career, which includes the Early Childhood Learning Center, CTAE, ADA, the auxiliary gym, and the theater expansion. There are two financial impacts to consider. The first is the startup cost, and these costs are one-time and consist primarily of design and construction costs, which include, at a minimum, material, concrete, steel, lumber, labor, equipment, site work, project management, and permits, utility installation, which covers the cost of installing electrical wiring, plumbing, and other utilities needed for the building, building shell, which includes the basic structural component like foundation, walls, and roof, interior finishes, the cost for flooring, ceiling, painting, and other interior finishes. Mechanical systems are the cost for HVAC, plumbing, electrical systems, and fire safety systems, and other specialized costs for labs, kitchens, auxiliary gym, and other specialized areas within the building. The total one-time preliminary capital costs, which include contingencies, are estimated at $35 million. In addition to capital costs, the second financial impact to consider is ongoing operating costs. The largest portion of ongoing operating costs is salaries and benefits of staff. The other portion of operating costs is the non-salary operational costs to run the building, such as the maintenance costs to maintain the inside and outside of the building. Examples are utilities, cleaning supplies, instructional supplies, and landscaping. The total ongoing costs are estimated at $3 million. Since the district does not have the upfront cost to finance the project, we must consider potential project financing options. Currently under consideration for upfront financing are public facilities authorities, which are referred to as PFAs. PFAs are governmental entities that enable municipalities to make long-term financial commitments through contractual relationship with the PFA, which can then issue bonds based on the future payments to finance a project. The district will utilize the City of Decatur PFA, which was created by the Georgia General Assembly in 2017 and has the authority to finance projects for both the city and the school district. The PFA would issue the bonds on behalf of the school district based on the district's credit and is repaid through an intergovernmental contract between the district and the PFA. The district would make the repayment. The PFA would serve as the financing authority and conduit. There is no liability on their part. The PFA was created to serve this purpose, and a referendum is not required. General obligation bonds, also referred to as GO bonds, may be issued to finance the project. However, per the City of Decatur's charter, any GO bonds issued for the benefit of the district must be voted on by the taxpayers and issued by the city and would therefore be reflected as debt on the city's book and their office. The city will be actively involved throughout the bond issuance process. The district would initially have to adopt a resolution recommending to the city the adoption of the city of a resolution calling a referendum for the issuance of a GO bond to finance the project. During the bond issuance process, the city would approve the referendum resolution, adopt resolutions approving the results of the referendum and the pricing of the GO bonds, and be involved in all steps of the financing. The earliest a referendum could be called on for GO bonds is in November. GO bonds traditionally carry the lowest interest rate. Certificate of participation, also referred to as COP, are issued through the Georgia Municipal Association via a lease financing agreement. COP requires titles on all projects to be released to GMA and then purchased back as a method to secure a promise to pay. The interest rate for COP is materially higher than a PFA or GO bond. COP can be the most expensive route to take. New Market Tax Credit, also referred to as NMTC, is a non-refundable tax credit intended to encourage private capital investment in eligible, economically distressed, low-income communities. NMTCs are allocated by the Community Development Financial Institution Fund, a bureau within the U.S. Department of the Treasury, under a competitive application process. Investors who make qualified equity investments reduce their federal income tax liability by claiming the credit. NMTC does not typically fund an entire project. They provide a maximum of 20% of the project's financing, often in the form of a low-interest debt that is forgiven within 7 years. This project is NMTC eligible due to the location of the proposed ECLC at Decatur High School. Angel investors are individuals or groups who use their own personal wealth to contribute to capital projects. In return for significant investments, consideration must be given, such as naming the building, a wing, a courtyard, or some other part of the project after the investment. Other considerations include capital campaigns, philanthropy, and grants. Philanthropy is motivated by the desires of others to improve the world and help those in need, and often involves donors making contributions. often of money to support causes aligned with the donor's value. Congressionally directed spending refers to provisions in federal appropriation legislation that specify a particular amount of funding for a specific project, location, or entity, often at the request of a member of Congress. Congressionally directed spending is intended to support projects that benefit communities such as educational initiatives. The process begins with a member of Congress requesting funding for a project within their district or state. These requests are then considered by the Appropriations Committee and can be included in annual appropriation bills. This process allows for direct allocation of funds without a competitive process. For the capital funding portion, the district will be required to repay any bonds issued. Resources for repayment of capital one-time purchases include Block 7, which will be on the November 2026 ballot for taxpayers to vote. The annual repayment for the presented capital plan is estimated at $2.6 million for 20 years at an interest rate of 4%, or $2.1 million for 30 years at an interest rate of 4.25%. The interest rate is subject to change. Other repayment options include endowments or donations, capital outlay reimbursements from Georgia Department of Education for qualifying capital outlay expenditures for Decatur High School and pre-K related expenses. The district has real estate that could be sold, and all other district assets will be under consideration. Additionally, the general fund can be used to pay debt. Funding for ongoing operational expenses will be paid out of the general fund. Funds received from students who will pay the full and partial tuition will generate approximately $1.5 million of the $3 million ongoing operating costs. CAPS is a resource to assist no to low-income families with the cost of child care. A millage increase of 1/2 would generate an additional $1.5 million. Three opportunities for students to receive sponsorships and scholarships from outside sources. Next steps for financial consideration include narrowing down which lending resources or combination of resources will be utilized and presenting this recommendation to the board. Obtaining a competitive bond takes about 90 days. The district currently averages an estimated $7 million in SBLOC proceeds and currently pay out an average of $2.2 million annually in debt paid. The additional $2.1 million repayment for a 30-year repayment plan would bring the district's annual debt payment from SBLOC to $4.3 million annually. Considering that SBLOC has underperformed for the last 3 years, the $7 million in SBLOC proceeds represents a $1 million decrease in the $8 million that is actually allocated to the district. Additionally, if Block 7 does not pass, all SBLOC expenses will be reallocated to the general fund. Next, we will have Ms. Newton Scott with the close.
You've been given a lot of information, right, about the why, the what, and the how. And some may say, we already have early childhood learning programs. Or why not just keep what we have? Or even we need more time to understand. The questions, the hesitation are well understood. But I ask this. As parents, neighbors, community members, when have we ever seen any child in need of a vital resource that we were capable of providing and didn't provide it? The truth is, we probably wouldn't do that. The need for our children, we meet it. We show up, we step in, and we give our best. Not just for our own kids, but for our neighbors' kids too. That's the heart of this community. And because we care so deeply, we can't ignore the truth that waiting has a cost, and children shouldn't be the ones to bear it. So let's look at what we've already built with that spirit. College Heights has been serving families for over 20 years. The Fraser Center, over 34 years. That's decades of commitment, care, and community. These are strong programs, and they have made a difference for countless families. But over time, we've drifted. These programs, originally created to serve our most vulnerable families, have gradually shifted to serve more families who can afford tuition and the many children of our CSD staff. And let me be clear, we don't want to eliminate any of that. Our staff deserve high-quality care for their children, and families who pay tuition are an important part of this story, too. Both groups have helped sustain and strengthen our programs over the years. However, we have to return to the why. We have to reconnect with the opportunities these programs were built on, to provide access for families who otherwise wouldn't have it, to lift up children who might not get that head start any other way. And we can do both. We can honor what these early learning programs have become, which are essential developmental foundations for our children's futures in industry, in the arts, and athletics, and beyond. And we can bring back alignment with the original purpose. This is a full circle commitment. Even if one child is still waiting, still unseen, still unheard, then our mission remains incomplete, and we simply do not have the time or the luxury to wait. From the first word spoken, the first questions asked, the first sparks of curiosity, to the final walk across the graduation stage, we are nurturing our children's dreams, honoring their potential, and standing by them from the cradle to career. We now invite questions that you may have.
Thanks, I'm super excited. I think the three questions I have, which may not be specific to this capital plan and maybe later. So taking, I think I understood this, right? CTAE, we're gonna be able to offer 2 additional pathways by building this space, like that's guaranteed or that's planned? You see the difference? I'm just trying to make sure I understand, like, we've already identified that pathway for that space.
Yeah, great question. So we have identified that in the Ox Gym, we have a, I'm not using the right word, but like a trainer room. And so that would allow our high school students to then be able to really dig into that pathway. Yeah. Therapy, yeah, physical therapy.
And I'm just gonna piggyback on that a little bit. So the current training room we have now is just box this into a rectangle, maybe 2 tables. Severely, if you think about the most impoverished school in the metro Atlanta area, it has better facilities than Decatur High.
Oh, yeah, no, I've heard,
Yeah, so that puts our athletes at risk for treatment. That is just not, no other school has that deficit, that large.
So then, can I ask a follow-up? I think I understood this. This is specific to art, so we have these great programs, the middle school started, and so with the black box, we're envisioning more arts built at a younger age, like possibly more middle school, or I think my question is, sorry that I'm working it through. My understanding is, yeah, we've been kind of bursting at the seams. We may have athletes that have not been able to participate, or, you know, dancers that can't dance because we just haven't had the physical space to allow that. And so these new spaces will offer those opportunities.
Yes, and expand those opportunities.
Okay.
To more students.
And then for the $3 million, I think, in operations, salaries, and benefits, that's looking at the ECLC as well as then any additional teachers for new pathways, additional coaches, et cetera.
That's total operating cost.
Thank you.
Also, I'm really excited for these, STEM assessments especially. I know that a lot of that work right now is really students saying they would do their own fundraisers. They're doing it in really cramped classrooms. I have a friend doing a hydroponic system, and he's getting all the materials on his own, and it's just like pure student passion that's driving it. And so I'm really excited that they're actually going to get allowed, because we know that those fields are the most, the performance is very connected to resources. So especially in competitions, they are disadvantaged for not having those resources. I'm also curious about, if we're expanding CTAE, obviously there'd be more internships, dual enrollment, and there would be like parking or transportation needs. Do we have interest in like expanding student parking?
I will say student parking is not necessarily something that we've explored for at this point in the plan. What I will say is that student parking is always a hot topic, as I would say with all of definitely my 612 superintendent advisory council. They have mentioned parking in the past.
I have a question for either Mrs. Scott or Ms. Burton. There's definitely a lot of conversation about the new Early Learning Center and the number of spots, and how those number of spots sort of equate to the necessity of this particular facility. So I think you did a great job of highlighting the necessity of early learning, which we all believe in. Could you kind of dispel some of those myths for some of our folks who may be listening? I think there are a lot of people who think that the Fraser Center is being underutilized, that there are spots that are going unfilled year to year, that there are folks in the Housing Authority who are not willing to utilize the Early Learning Center, and then there's a concern that perhaps once the building is built, it will go unfilled, or that we are somehow going to not prioritize students from the Housing Authority. So is there a way we could discuss some of that?
Absolutely, and I'll also kind of take this opportunity to share, we've updated, because we have gotten some of these recurring questions in our FAQ, and in the FAQ, we talk about, we have wait lists at both Fraser Center and at College Heights. And so we are at complete and full capacity in both of our early learning spaces right now.
I think the other follow-up question is how, and you mean it's okay if you don't have the answer to that, how would we formulate a plan to make sure that we're seeking out these infants and toddlers who we want in this space? You know, because if they are if they're not at the Fraser Center, if they're still on the waiting list, how do we make sure we find it? Or are we assuming that if we build it, they will come? So.
Yeah, and so it does, and we talk about this in our FAQ too, about reestablishing trust. Historically, before the pandemic, Fraser Center staff was going over door to door into DHA and really recruiting. And then I think because the pandemic hit, then everybody kind of, you know, stepped back. And we understand that. But now it's time to re-engage. And so we've already started that re-engagement through our listening sessions, through our focus groups, working with DHA leadership, including DHA in our PAPS process. That was a really important value, you know, of our superintendent. And so that's something that is ongoing. And I can say that even with that kind of relationship building, we were able to encourage families to go to, from DHA, to go to the Fraser Center. But again, we're at a wait list now, so.
And I'm going to give a very specific example. Most recently, my last listening session face-to-face was at DHA. And in our listening sessions or community meetings, we ask families and attendees to go on in and sign in. We provide the laptop, and we said, go on and sign in. Well, what if I don't know how to read? Go ahead, sign in. Culturally relevant ways of engaging the community. There was a member of our team that noticed that because the member of the team has tremendous experience working with community where that type of barrier is present. I said, it came over to me. I said, you know what to go do. Went over, you de-escalate the situation. You say, hey, what's your name? I know you. And then you complete it for them. Being able to connect with the entire community of the City Schools of Decatur is something that every employee must be able to do. But if you are going to lead or be present as a teacher, assistant, person that works in the cafeteria or bus driver, with anyone that will be at that new facility, it's going to be a must. Because trust is truly the root cause. They don't trust us. They don't trust us because of the experiences they've had with us over the decades.
Some questions for finance, since you were assuming I would start to ask. So I just want to run these, some of these numbers look very large. I imagine the community can be surprised by some of it. So I want to spend a little bit of time doing some math off the top of our heads and break it down into what we're really talking about, kind of on an annual basis, right? So we talked about a $3 million operating cost, of which about half of it would be recouped through tuition. So we're really talking about a $1.5 million increment on operating cost without looking at anything else that might offset operating costs. I just want to be clear. So 1.5 maybe million, if I understood it. The $35 million number, while that looks like a very big number, that's really worst case $2.5 million over 20 years, right? So we're talking about $2.5 million plus, $1.5 million, basically a $4 million bogey that we have to hit. That is worst case before we have any other offsetting costs like new market tax credits, any philanthropic donations, anything of that nature. The SPLOST can take the bulk of that, right? The SPLOST can take about 2.5 of that. So there's no property tax implications there. Really what we're talking about in terms of a worst case increment on the general fund, assuming we have access to SPLOST, is about $1.5 million. It's about $500,000. It is less than, well, I'm running numbers off the top of my head. It's about a 1% impact on the budget. Mm-hmm. So what we are talking about is about a 1% impact on our budget. We get to serve an underserved community through an early childhood learning center, closing a massive, massive gap that we feel every single year in our schools. We get to do all of these athletic programs that we've desperately needed because we're bursting at the seams in those spaces. We get to move the Fraser Center, which is a critical resource for all of our teachers, and ensure that we get expanded access to it to be able to continue to recruit based upon that offering. We get all of the performing spaces that we were talking about in this presentation. I just want to come back and say, for less than 1% impact on our budget, we get all of that. That's what we're talking about here. Is my math correct on all of that? Okay. That was my core question.
In your point, it's also worth emphasizing, these total numbers here, 35 million in startup and 3 million annual is the entire project. It is not just ECLC, it's the entire project. And the operating costs are not just ECLC costs, they're also operating costs for all of the expansions. So.
Yes, the staff that we have for the majority of our staff are already employed, have most of the credentials already in place. They just don't have a place to display them because there is no space at the high school to do so.
But then the next part of my question, and I know this is coming, right? So I'm anticipating this on behalf of the community, but the next question really is, I'd like to see kind of a beat timeline for when a lot of these things are going to happen. We've talked about it. Dominoes have to fall at certain times. It would be nice to see when those dominoes are planning to fall, because I know some people are going to come up and talk about, well, this isn't happening for 2 years, or this isn't happening. Can we accelerate these things? We have to be very clear on it. It's going to happen in this order because of this reason, just so that everybody can see start to finish what we're talking about in terms of.
Yes, we will be able to provide that on our agenda for tonight in the regular board meeting is a resolution. The next step is for the board to authorize myself, legal counsel, bond counsel, as well as our financial advisor to go to the PFA. That's the next step. Once that is solidified, we've gone through that process, I would say by August, we will be able to give full picture scenarios on a 20-year, understanding how long it would take before we have groundbreaking, shovels turning, and the various domino effects. Because I can't move things at the Fraser Center as far as expanding that CTAE offering until the Fraser Center children have moved. Types of renovation on the current PAC, well, we want to not impact the actual current offerings in school time. But all of that is contingent upon money in the bank. So the next step is truly the bonds and money in the bank.
And so thank you for such a thorough presentation. And I just want to reiterate, I don't really have a question, but I do want to highlight a question that we have heard previously, and we recently got an email with a question as to why can't we just open up pre-K spaces in our existing schools? And so, there would be costs associated with configuring classrooms to be in compliance, to have pre-K in those classrooms. And then for the community that doesn't have a elementary school walking distance, that would still be a barrier, and we can't put infants on school buses. We could do that for our pre-K students, but we would not be able to do that for our infants.
Yes, as Department of Transportation for Georgia Department of Education, we cannot transport 6-month-olds.
Right.
The youngest we can transport would be pre-K or special needs pre-K3 if we needed it. And those types of things are driven, of course, through their IEP and IDEA.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, because I want the community to know we do read those emails. We did see that those questions, that question come up in a recent communication. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, in short, basically, we're saying that it costs a whole bunch of money to reuse the space that we already have, and it doesn't solve the core issue that we're trying to solve with early education. Yeah.
As a follow-up about timelines, you mentioned the website, so people are listening. Here, it says spring, summer 2025 construction phase begins. So will we be filling those in, because someone listening might look at this and then be like, wait, is construction starting in June? And then am I hearing that effectively we're going to start with the ECLC? sometime in 2026.
2026.
And then Fraser Center is afterwards, so that's gonna be later in 2026. Faculty, so with regard to the other additions, athletics, arts, and CTAE, are we really looking more at 2028? So ECLC is opening in 2027.
If you were to say, what are some of the first things that aren't attached to anything else? It would be ECLC, the Aux Gym, and the work on the PAC, because they're different locations. But when you would start on the PAC is not in the middle of one act season. You know what I mean? Like, I have to think about the true operation of the building. But the key to all of it is truly the next step is the funding. And knowing that once that bond process, it's then another 90 days. So we are looking at potentially, possibly October, November, of having money in the bank, and then potentially being able to say, okay, now that we have the construction manager at risk, they've been on site, they've talked with us for now a month, essentially, looking at everything, then all of those swim lanes come together for the next presentation, which would be in August. But the first next step is that PFS.
And then logistically speaking, I assume we're working with the city if we're gonna have construction here and here.
That all of that is why you have to go through all of the steps first. And I would not want to say one will happen on this month. We're in the process of planning and zoning to actually meet tonight at 7 when we're done here. Any other questions? So over the past year, the board and I have worked to respond to the concerns in the community over providing additional space for athletics, for the arts, for workforce development, which we call Career Technical Agricultural Education, or CTAE, closing the achievement gap by addressing learning for every student, all students in our 0 to 3 population. It is important to note that the disparities in access exist across all neighborhoods in our city. Through this presentation and the one previously by Dr. Sproul, you have heard the district's plans for a comprehensive capital improvement plan to address these concerns. The capital improvement plan underscores our commitment to ensuring that all CSD students are prepared to thrive cradle to career.
Thank you, team. Our goal is not only to close the achievement gap, but it is to support the growth of all students through the arts, athletics, workforce development, and early learning. This starts as early as birth. In my occupation as a pediatric emergency medicine physician, I witness daily the short and long-term impacts of the disparities in access to programs that are outlined in this plan. While we are a high-achieving district, as a board and as a community, one of the values that we continue to espouse is to provide equitable access to learning opportunities to all of our students, regardless of their geographic location. This is our priority and a cornerstone of our all-indicator 5-year strategic plan. Dr. Whitaker, please introduce the next presentation.
Chair Sultan, I would like to call on Mrs. Amanda Lynch, Chief of Staff, who will present 3 policies for first read.
Good afternoon once again, Chair Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Oates, esteemed members of the board, Student Representative Batra, and Superintendent Dr. Whitaker. Today we have 3 policies on the agenda for work session. Each of these policies are revisions to existing policies. We have policies JCGAD, bullying, GARH, employee leave and absences, and JB, student attendance. Policies presented in work session are being presented for first read. If approved for first read, they will be available for public comment through Assembly. Stakeholders can access any policies open for public comment on the right-hand side of our Assembly homepage. Assembly is available on our CSD website under the board. The first policy being presented today is a revision to the existing policy JCDAG, bullying. This policy was discussed last month during pre-work, during which time it was explained that the revisions are necessary because the state statute now limits cyberbullying to acts that originated on campus or through school equipment. There were several minor revisions made to the version shared last month, namely including in addition to clearly prohibit retaliation against any individual who reports bullying or engages in the complaint process. May I read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
The recommendation being made is that City Schools of Decatur Board of Education accept policy JCDAG, bullying, for first read.
Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation of policy JCDAG, bullying, for first read?
So moved.
Board Member Johnson Davis makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Anderson seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries.
The next policy being presented for first read is policy GARH, employee leave and absences. This is a revision to an existing policy and is being brought to work session in response to House Bill 235. The revision reflects employee entitlement to organ donor leave. House Bill 235 is effective July 1st, 2025. Thus, our legal team has recommended these changes should be in place as soon as practical thereafter. As part of our annual review, our employee handbook will also be updated to reflect these changes prior to the July 1st effective date. May I read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
The recommendation being made is that City Schools of Decatur Board of Education accept policy GARH, employee leave and absences, for first read.
Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation of policy GARH, employee leave and absences, for first read?
So moved.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Anderson seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries unanimously.
The final policy being presented for first read today is policy JB, student attendance. This is a revision to an existing policy and is also being brought directly to work session in response to new legislation, specifically Senate Bill 123. The revisions state that procedures will be established to effectively and continuously identify and provide appropriate support to students who are chronically absent or at risk of becoming chronically absent. May I read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
The recommendation being made is that City Schools of Decatur Board of Education accept policy JB, student attendance, for first read.
Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation of policy JB, student attendance, for first read?
So moved.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Anderson seconds the motion. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick request. I would be really interested in just reading what the regulations are that support. Not that I need to weigh in on it in any way, but I'm just curious how this would be implemented.
Excellent, noted.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mrs. Lynch, and thank you, Dr. Whitaker. We encourage the public to review the policies which are posted in Assembly. There being no further business, this work session is adjourned at 5:17 p.m. We will recess and return at 5:30. Meeting.
You feel warmer?
A tiny bit, yeah.
Oh.
See, the problem is, in 30 minutes, we're gonna be like.
No, you have another minute. So did she leave?
No, 100%. I mean, like.
We're ready.
Tracy had the
We should
meeting?
share
Okay.
it out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, we will now call this meeting to order at 5:30 PM. We ask that you silence all cell phones at this time. We will now begin with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I ask that everyone join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Now I ask all who are able to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Our mission is to inspire and enable student growth through meaningful and engaging learning experiences supported by highly qualified and caring educators in a safe and inviting environment. All right, we will start with the agenda revisions. Board members, are there any revisions to tonight's board meeting agenda? Okay, do I have a motion to approve today's agenda?
So move.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Johnson Davis seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Our next agenda item is the approval of the minutes from previous board meetings. Do I have a motion to approve May's regular board meeting and retreat meeting minutes?
So moved.
Board Member Johnson Davis makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Board Member Utz seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Dr. Whitaker, do we have any recognitions tonight?
Yes, Chair Sultan. Tonight's recognition will be facilitated by Deputy Superintendent Karen Newton Scott.
Good evening, Board Chair Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Utz, dean members of the board, and student representative Batra. Superintendent Dr. City Schools of Decatur's Finance Department produced the district's first budget book this year. The budget book received 2 national awards. The Government Finance Officers Association awarded the district's fiscal year 2025 budget the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. The award represents a significant achievement by the entity. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the entity had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. Budget documents must be rated proficient in all 4 categories and in the 14 mandatory criteria within those categories to receive the award. Award recipients have pioneered efforts to improve the quality of budgeting and provide an excellent example of other governments throughout North America. The Association of School Business Officials International also recognized the City of Decatur for excellence in budget presentation with the pathway to the Meritus Budget Award for the current 2024-2025 budget year. ASBO International MBA and Pathways to the MBA promote and recognize best budget presentation practices in school districts. Participants submit their applications and budget documents to a panel of school financial professionals who review the materials for compliance with the MBA criteria checklist and other requirements, and provide expert feedback that districts can use to improve their budget documents. Presenting a budget that is both accessible and accurate is crucial for school districts to clearly communicate and build trust within the community. The Budget Award Program provides districts with the resources and tools to do just that. And the districts that receive the award are recognized for their commitment to upholding nationally recognized budget presentation standards. This evening, we'd like to congratulate the entire finance team, starting with Katina Abram, our purchasing specialist. Please join us up front. Pam Du, our accounts payable specialist. Kelly Glover, our comptroller. Kathy Carmaker, our payroll specialist. Monique Parker Bailey, our financial coordinator. Stephanie Walker, audit and accounts specialist. Last but not least, our chief financial officer, Dr. Lanita Broom. Board members, please join us up front for photos with this wonderful team.
Students, you're gonna be in the middle. Okay.
All right. Board members, I need y'all to.
Does it?
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Newton-Scott, and congratulations, Dr. Broom and team, for your transparent hard work. Dr. Whitaker, do you have a superintendent's report?
Yes, Chair Sultan, and good evening, CSD. Since our May board meeting, we have celebrated the end of the 2024-25 school year and the transition of our students across the district to their new grade levels. We were especially proud to honor the achievements of our 8th grade students during the Beacon Hill Middle School capstone ceremony from middle school to high school. Families joined staff in applauding their accomplishments as hand-painted flags were hung around the gym, symbolizing each student's middle school experience. We look forward to seeing their progress and continued success over the next 4 years. And of course, the culminating event of the year was celebrating our Decatur High School class of 2025 as they took their first steps into the post-secondary future. Board members, you and I shook the hands of 457 graduating seniors, cheering alongside their family members, school staff, district administrators, and fellow graduates. As I said in my commencement remarks for the graduating class of 2025, their average weighted GPA was 3.7, an impressive 243. Over half of the class graduated with honors. 12 graduates had committed to workforce plans. 7 are going into one of the armed services, and nearly 80% of the graduates are going to college, with over 100 different institutions represented globally. We continue to celebrate the many accomplishments of this distinguished class of 2025 and wish them well in their continued pursuit of excellence. This month, we join the national celebration of diverse cultures, achievements, and historical contribution of people from the Caribbean American heritage. As we strive to be a district that cultivates inclusive environments for every student, in June, we also honor Pride Month and the advocacy and contributions of the LGBTQ+ community. In addition to celebrations this month, we recognize National Safety Month. At this time, I'd like to call upon Deputy Superintendent Karen Newton-Scott to provide a Spring STAR Assessment update.
Good evening, Board Chair Dr. Sultan, Vice Chair Utz, esteemed board members, Student Representative Batra, and Superintendent Dr. Jima Whitaker. This presentation will highlight our results from the spring administration of the STAR assessment and what they mean for our students. The STAR assessments comprehensively look at student performance across key academic domains. STAR Early Literacy is used primarily with pre-K through third grade students who are not yet reading independently. STAR Reading serves K through 12 and assesses students with basic reading proficiency. STAR Math also supports students in grades K through 12 with foundational reading and math skills. This suite allows us to monitor growth and proficiency across the full K-12 spectrum. As you may recall, State Superintendent Dr. Richard Woods released a list of 5 recommended literacy screeners to the State Board of Education in alignment with Senate Bill 464. STAR was included on that list due to its strong psychometric properties, national representative norming, accessibility, and ease of administration. This year marks our first full year of implementation of the STAR assessment. Fall, winter, and spring assessment windows provide a comprehensive view of student growth throughout the year. Do you remember these 2 students? This is John and Jane, who both took a 4th grade reading test and scored 434, which for illustration purposes is considered a high score. Jane began with a score of 301 and increased by 133 points. She scored higher than 90% of students who also started with a score of 301, placing her at the 90th percentile for growth. On the other hand, John scored 434, but his beginning score was 364, which means he increased by 70 points. But many students who started with a score of 364 grew more than he did, placing him at the 20th percentile for growth. Jane and John are high achievers, but Jane has shown significant growth while John's growth has been minimal compared to his peers. This is how growth is measured on the STAR assessment. Each student is compared to their peers with similar starting scores in the fall and is then ranked as having achieved low, typical, or high growth. As mentioned in earlier presentations, students who scored 853 or higher on the assessment are considered to have met the proficiency threshold for the early literacy assessment. As a teachers to identify which students have secured the foundational skills necessary for successful reading. Each slide you will see will include a green box that displays data from the fall assessment, which serves as a reference point for comparing fall to spring outcomes. 1,185 K-3 students participated in the STAR Early Literacy Assessment. Of those, approximately 700 students scored 853 or higher in the fall, and an additional 174 that benchmark in the winter. As a result, these students were excluded from the spring testing window for early literacy. This left 322 K-3 students assessed both in the fall and spring. Among those 322 students, 62% met or exceeded their expected growth from fall to spring. 72% scored at or above the 40th percentile, indicating steady progress in foundational literacy. You will find a breakdown of this data by race to the right. The red section represents the number and percentage of students who demonstrated low growth. The lighter green indicates students who made typical growth, and the darker green reflects those who achieved above average growth, surpassing expectations for the academic year. Among students in grades 1 through 5, 73.2% demonstrated typical or high growth, indicating substantial overall progress. This spring, 78.7% of students reached or exceeded proficiency, representing a slight decrease from the fall performance. It is important to note that a greater percentage of first graders advanced to the STAR Reading Assessment this spring. While many are still developing and have not yet met their benchmark, the early transition to this more advanced assessment reflects significant progress and should be commended. We continue to monitor performance across student groups to ensure equitable outcomes in reading achievement. Encouragingly, all student subgroups showed an increase in the number of students achieving typical or high growth. This progress reflects the impact of our ongoing efforts to support all learners in literacy outcomes. For middle school reading, 71.4% of students met growth expectations and 82% scored at or above proficiency. The proficiency rate remains steady from fall to spring. Once again, we're seeing positive progress with all but one student subgroup, showing an increase in the number of students achieving typical or high growth. At the high school level, 67.2% of students met growth expectations and 73.7% scored at or above proficiency, reflecting again a slight decrease from the fall. It is important to note that approximately 100 graduating seniors are not included in the spring assessment data, primarily due to the timing of the assessment window, which often overlaps the second semester dual enrollment scheduling or other end-of-year priorities. In this data set, we see that Asian, multiracial, and white student subgroups showed an increase in the number of students achieving typical or high growth. Turning to math. 2018 K-5 students participated in the assessment, with 72.6 demonstrating typical or high growth. Approximately 70% of our K-5 students scored at or above proficiency, reflecting steady performance in the early grades. Asian, Latinx, and multiracial student subgroups showed an increase in the number of students achieving typical or high growth. In grades 6 through 8, 69.2% of students met their targets, 64% reached proficiency, showing stability from the fall, The data shows Latinx and multiracial student groups showing an increase in the number of students achieving typical or high growth. This is similar to the elementary data and points to a potential need to intensify support for math instruction at both middle and elementary schools. For high school math, 1,610 students took the STAR assessment. Please note that 108 graduating seniors are not represented in the spring assessment data. Again, this is due to the timing. As a result, overall participation rates and performance outcomes may appear lower due to the difference in the number of students being assessed. Therefore, we use caution when interpreting data at the school level for this group. In math at the high school level, 65% of students met or exceeded their growth expectations. 50% met the proficiency benchmark. Our Black student subgroups showed an increase in the number of students achieving typical or high growth. So what does this all mean? Just like individual students, the STAR assessment platform also sets a district-wide growth goal, commonly benchmarked at 65%. This benchmark, provided by Renaissance Learning, is widely used to track and evaluate student progress, but it is essential to clarify what it represents. The 65% growth goal does not mean students are expected to score in the 65th percentile. Instead, it refers to the growth rate, how much students improve over time compared to years. Specifically, students who meet this goal are growing faster than 65% nationwide with a similar starting point. It reflects progress, not just performance. This growth target is used for several important reasons. It is ambitious yet achievable. It challenges schools to foster above average student growth while remaining within reach for most. It is linked to long-term success. Renaissance data suggests students growing at or above the 65th percentile are more likely to meet or exceed grade level proficiency. And it is also aligned with accountability systems. Many state and district evaluation frameworks use similar growth metrics to monitor school and student performance. So how did we do this spring? Math, overall, we exceeded the 65% growth goal, with kindergarten and upper elementary grades leading the way in performance. In early literacy, at 61.4%, we fell slightly below the growth target, highlighting the need to revisit instructional strategies, particularly in grades 1 and 2. And for reading, performance was strong, with overall growth surpassing the target at 70%. Grades 1 and 2 stood out for achieving the highest rates of growth. That concludes my presentation on the STAR assessment.
For the targeting of instructional strategies for kindergarten, since we, lagged and did not meet the target, how will that happen? Is that happening this summer? Is that PD through the school year?
Probably next year. I was just saying it has to be next year for when they get to first grade, because we don't have summer school for the youngest.
No, okay, I guess I was thinking it was around professional development, around kindergarten
Yeah.
teachers.
Mm-hmm.
All
That-
teachers are receiving professional development, started this summer before they really left for their summer break. We have adopted a new reading curriculum, called Wit and Wisdom. So every elementary teacher received most, because they had a choice. They could attend, before taking their summer break, or they could attend as they return for pre-planning.
Mm-hmm.
And so within that training is very specific information about the right instructional strategies that should be used in order to meet the needs of all students. Teachers have to adhere to a 90-minute block of instruction. solid block of instruction. We have been a little loose with that in the past and allowed some autonomy in how that was broken up, but we are holding to that 90-minute block of instruction with very clear expectations for what instruction looks like, conversations sound like, what instruction and what teachers should be doing with students.
Okay, so I guess that, I assume that will be something you all will be looking through, in your walkthroughs?
Absolutely. There will be a Witten Wisdom implementation walkthrough that is different than the one we've used before, because we want to make sure that we're having a strong beginning to implementing that curriculum. So we'll do that in addition to the other high-quality indicators that we
I know historically when we've looked at subgroups that need the most attention, I know economically disadvantaged has cropped up as kind of the one of the more challenging subgroups in terms of reaching. And it occurs to me that there's different strategies that you would take, right? So if we take a look just at race, I'm not clear that delineates. In other words, I would say if Black students that are economically advantaged are underperforming, that would be a different set of strategies than if the economically disadvantaged children are underperforming, right? In some cases, I'm going to be looking more into the classroom and what is happening with instruction. Other cases, I'm going to be looking outside of the classroom and what other, this is why we brought CIS and some of these, the other support structures in place. And so I'm curious whether, do we want to look at a little more nuanced breakdown between some of the subgroups?
Yes,
We do. We want to.
yes,
That's what we're
that's the
paying
big,
for when we start talking
it's about the
systems.
interoperable data system.
Okay.
Bingo, that's it. So when we review this presentation in cabinet, as we always do, that was the next step. And so we did, and you all know, because you authorized EduClimber.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking in and ingesting all of our data at this point. It's not to the point where it's been verified in all levels that it's fully accurate and operational to the point that I could show you that data.
Okay.
But by your retreat in September, I think it is, or August, whenever the first retreat is, when we take the deep dive into student data, we will be using EduClimber to do so.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Just very quickly, and you may have touched on this, what is your interpretation or your thoughts as to why you see the drop between the 62.9 in kindergarten under early literacy and then that decline in first and second grade?
So keep in mind with early literacy, you have different groups of students that are administered the test. At the beginning of the year, everybody's in the data set. By mid-year, some kids are progressing on to start reading. And then by the spring, you only have those students who are still there in the foundational skills realm of learning. And so oftentimes, it depends on the grade level. I would say that's appropriate for kindergarten. But when you get to second grade and you are still performing in the way that the early literacy assessment would be appropriate, and those are probably our most struggling students. And so therefore, we will see a drop in the data because they are the only ones in that data set by the end of second. Most second graders who are progressing will have moved on to start reading before they end second grade.
Mm-hmm. So these are identified as your struggling readers.
And so then what would be interesting then, instead of comparing them as a group to the amalgamation of students prior, it would be interesting to understand of the students that are left in that group that scored at 49.4%. How did they do, that group alone, how did they do in prior? And are more of them meeting standards than had been in the prior assessments? Or is the same group of students performing worse by the time they get to the second grade? Do you see what I'm saying? And this also might be a interoperable.
It is. You're looking at, you're talking about the longitudinal data of a student once you filter it down to that actual name of student in need.
Yes.
which is what that does.
Yeah, I mean, so in other words, I think to Dr. Sultan's point, it's not really fair to say first and second grades lagged compared to before, because you're talking about a completely different subset that you're looking at in that case. And they may actually be doing quite well compared to how they were doing. They also might be doing worse, and we just don't know. And so that's, well, I mean, we don't know looking at this data. And so that's where my question comes in.
The data represents any student who's had a fall early literacy assessment and a spring. So when we look at the spring data and we look at growth, it does represent just the students who started there in the fall and also ended there in the spring. And so when you get to start reading, then you see more of a soup bowl. You have kids who are already in start reading and kids who are entering start reading. But for early literacy, that data represents the students who took the early literacy test in the fall and also took it in the spring. Therefore, that growth data represents the percent of kids who achieved the expected growth, exceeded it, or experienced low growth.
Oh, okay, so it's already filtered in the way that I was describing it. Okay.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Newton-Scott. Over the past year, board, we've worked together to respond to so many different concerns, and I am very encouraged by what we talked about a little earlier, where we're addressing the additional space for the arts, athletics, workforce development, and career technical agricultural education. And what Mrs. Newton-Scott just talked about, which was around early literacy, that data will change when all students begin to have access to early learning. Readiness for kindergarten is really what you see reflected in that data, or would I say the non-readiness for kindergarten. During our work session earlier, the public heard our plan, and in our comprehensive capital improvement plan, we are addressing some of those concerns. We're making sure that all of our CSD students are prepared to thrive, cradle to career. What I would say is this really does come down to trust. As we value seeing and hearing all of our community, we will be able to ensure that our entire learning community is successful. All must truly mean all. Update that summer school started actually on May 29th, and it's going well. Just this morning, I visited with our partners from the National Summer School Initiative, and summer school will end on June the 18th. So Chair Sultan, this completes my report.
Thank you.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is that, Chair, would you? And this is not necessarily for today, but in line with this particular topic, I think, Dr. Whitaker, you have an enormous amount of experience putting in place literacy programs and bringing scores up to speed when you're facing unequal access to early literacy. And so I would be interested in understanding, I'm not looking for a commitment or anything at this point, but I would be interested in understanding what sort of change you expect to see when those kids do have access to the program. I think that would be something, this is effectively what the community is buying if we build this program. So it would be nice to know what the anticipations are.
Yes, I will say that there is academic benefit, but then also there is social, emotional, or whole child benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us that are sitting in this room right now, if I took you to a restaurant where you saw a plate, multiple forks, multiple knives, the majority would know we go from the outside in. Yeah, stop lying. You go across the seas all the time, you know. But that's an example of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
if I've never had the opportunity to be exposed to what it's like to go to school, I don't know what to expect when I get there. And when has had that exposure plus the outside in and everything else that the majority of our students have the access to, I hate to say it, sometimes we think something's wrong with the other child. But in actuality, they just didn't have that access. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good evening. On behalf of the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education, I appreciate your in-person and online presence at our June board meeting. We join the administration in recognizing all of the June celebrations. This month, we also celebrate Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a combination of the words June and 19th. Juneteenth is celebrated on June 19th and commemorates the emancipation of Black Americans in the U.S. Since Juneteenth is a public holiday, all schools and district offices will be closed. While the school year has ended, we continue to celebrate our students' numerous achievements. We hope you are having a safe and enjoyable summer. Congratulations again to the DHS Class of 2025 on their academic milestone, and we wish them the best in their future pursuits. I want to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt congratulations to our superintendent, Dr. Jima Whitaker, who has recently been appointed to the National Governing Board of the American Association of School Administrators, AASA. AASA, known as the School Superintendents Association, is the leading organization for school system leaders and serves as the national advocate for public education and district leadership on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. As a board member of AASA, Dr. Whitaker will represent Georgia in Region 5, which encompasses the southeastern states. She will play a critical role in decision-making and will report on the board's activities to Georgia affiliate, the Georgia School Superintendents Association. At our Georgia School Board Association conference last week, I can say that the entire state of Georgia sends congratulations to Dr. Whitaker. Executive session, we began tonight's board meeting with pre-work, where we reflected on the Georgia School Board Association conference that we all attended last week and solidified the next book that we will read as a board. The annual GSBA conference continues to benefit our work as a board toward ensuring that we remain supportive of student success for all students. This year, as I listened to the workforce development work underway across the state, I must say I was pleased that CSD continues to be a leader in providing our students with high-quality, career-focused learning and preparation for post-secondary education and the workforce. Additionally, we received the draft of the 2025-2026 Board Management Oversight Plan. The conclusion of our preparation included a review of the public comment placement in our agenda. Finally, we discussed a revision to our policy on internet acceptable use. During the work session, there were two presentations. The board received an update on how Naviance and One Goal supported college and career readiness this past year. The next presentation summarized CSD's comprehensive capital improvement proposal, which included highlights of the interconnectedness of cradle to career programmatic areas, including early learning, arts, athletics, and CTAE to enrich student experiences. We also had some preliminary discussions and approved for first read our policies on bullying, employee leave, and absences, as well as student attendance. All of these presentations are available on Assembly and our ongoing commitment to increase transparency of our organizational operations. Finally, the City Schools of Decatur has tentatively adopted a millage rate which will require an increase in property taxes by 6.38%. This tentative increase will result in a millage rate of 20.3 mils, an increase of 1.217 mils. Without this tentative tax increase, the millage rate will be no more than 19.083 mils. The proposed tax increase for a home with a fair market value of $700,000 is approximately $426, and the proposed tax increase for a non-homestead value of $900,000 is approximately $548. All concerned citizens are invited to the public hearing on this tax increase to be held virtually on June 12th at 9 a.m. and again at 6:15 p.m. The third public hearing is scheduled for June 20th at 6 o'clock p.m. All hearings will be held virtually. As I conclude my remarks, I want to advise the public that there will not be a July board meeting unless it is needed. The next scheduled board meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Following my comments, the board will take action on several consent items. That concludes my remarks for this evening. Board members, do you have any thoughts to share?
I would like to just very quickly say, and I'm sad I didn't get to say this, Dr. Broom, while your team was here, although I don't blame them for walking out. I just want to say that I remember going from a place where we couldn't see year-to-year budget based on function. We didn't have a budget book. We had a superintendent that did not know what a comptroller was, right? To where we are now. We have a multi-year, a repeat award-winning budget book. Perhaps maybe a little too much financial transparency on monthly reports. And somehow you, Dr. Brew, managed to earn a PhD in the midst of all of this. So I just wanted to say that I'm really pleased in the growth that this department has shown. And I know your level of preparedness up here is built upon the work that your team has done. So I was really thrilled to be able to see them get honored today. It is recognized. The work that y'all have put in is recognized by all of us. So thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Whitaker, for continuing to insist that they perform at a very high level.
Thank you.
I was just gonna add real quick, I got a chance to participate, my first time participating was the Tally Street, Amazing Shake. And it was so much fun. I mean, I was so inspired by those students. I mean, they made me want to be a better leader. And so, you know, if I know they're not listening, but to all the parents of the new house leaders, you know, congratulations to them, because they all did a phenomenal job.
Dr. Johnson Davis, I was in the room twice.
But I never saw.
She never saw me. She was
engaged.
so engaged. So thank you both for that.
Thank you. Dr. Whitaker, we have an item from executive session.
Yes, Chair Sultan. It is recommended that the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education approve all legal and personnel items discussed in executive session on June.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve all legal and personnel items discussed in executive session on June 10th, 2025?
So moved.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Johnson Davis seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. The executive session items approved included a resolution of the Board of Education authorizing staff, for example, Dr. Whitaker, bond counsel, financial advisors, and CSC counsel to proceed with financing for the 2025 capital improvement projects, refinancing the certificates from the 2014 projects, if economically appropriate, through bonds issued through the PFA, and recognizing the engagement of bond counsel and financial advisors. Also, congratulations, Dr. Whitaker. We have extended your contract with the City Schools of Decatur through June 30th, 2028, which includes a raise that is in line with the rest of the City Schools of Decatur personnel. All right, Board, we will now move to the consent agenda items, which include monthly items such as the financial, nutrition, and personnel report. Additional items are the MOU with the CSD and City of Decatur to provide school resource officers, air conditioning units for College Heights, weight room equipment at DHS. The first item includes a report. There will be a motion to accept the consent agenda in totality. Dr. Whitaker, do we have a monthly financial report?
Yes, Chair Sultan. Dr. Lonita Broom, Chief Financial Officer, will present the monthly financial report.
Good evening again. The April 2025 financial report
codes are located in the Assembly's agenda. The Finance Department operates based on the district's 4 strategic accelerators, with a specific focus on Accelerator 4, organizational effectiveness and excellence through financial transparency. For general funds, as of April, the district collected 89%, or approximately $92 million of the budgeted revenue year to date. The percentage of tax proceeds collected for April is 408%, or approximately $3 million more than that which was collected this time last year due to the additional distribution from DeKalb County for an era in which the county applied an incorrect millage rate in fiscal year 23. All other revenue and expenses are trending as expected. For the month of April, there is a deficit of approximately $1 million, which has been deducted from the fund balance, which is normal for this time of the year. The general fund balance as of April 30th, 2025 was approximately $34 million, which includes the beginning fund balance of approximately $19 million. The fund balance last year at this time was $31 million. Please note that the fund balance will continue to decrease as expenditures increase. April revenue for capital and debt funds consisted of approximately $597,000 from earnings on investment and SLOSS 6 collections. Expenditures are normal for this time of the year, and the $676,288 deficit was deducted from the fund balance, which was approximately $5 million. Special revenue funds are grant funds, including federal and state grants not budgeted in the general fund. The district has collected 68% of the anticipated fiscal year 25 grants and expended 66%. School nutrition has collected 74% of the budgeted revenue and has expended 60% of the budgeted expenditures and operated at a financial surplus in April. The $15,461 surplus was added to the fund balance, which increased school nutrition fund balance to approximately $1.7 million. Last year, this time, the school nutrition fund balance was approximately $2 million. I will be happy to respond to any questions or provide clarification.
Thank you, Dr. Broom. Any comments or questions from the board? No? This item is on to consent.
Chair Sultan, may I read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
I recommend that the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 6?
So moved.
Board Member Utz makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Johnson Davis seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to policy, Dr. Whitaker.
Thank you. Chair Sultan, I would like to call on Mrs. Amanda Lynch, Chief of Staff, to present 2 policies for second read.
Good evening once again. We actually have one policy for second read action.
That's
tonight.
right, EBB.
And this is policy EBB. Policy EBB, safety, was presented last month for first read and has been available for public comment through Assembly. No public comment was received on this policy. We did make a few minor changes to the version that was presented last month that emerged from a final legal review. This was the addition of the sentence, school safety plans shall address behavioral health needs and establish a behavior threat assessment management plan. This is in alignment with legislation. May I read the recommendation?
Yes, please.
It is recommended that the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education approve policy EBB, safety for action.
Recommendation to approve policy EBB, safety for action. So moved. Board Member Johnson Davis makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Board Member Utz seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Sultan, we do not have anyone who has signed up for public comment.
Okay. So,
We can move to future dates. Oh, till 6, till 5:30. They had 2 by 5:30.
okay, perfect. All right, we have nobody signed up for public comment, so moving on to future dates. The board will host a virtual millage rate hearing on June 12th, 2025 at 9 a.m. and then on June 12th, 2025 at 6:15 p.m. And then again on June 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. There will be a special call board meeting at 6:30 on June 20th to vote on the millage rate. The next board meeting will be held on July 8th, only if needed. Our next meeting will be held at the Wilson Center, and that will be on August 12th, 2025. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 6:20 p.m.
Yeah. Wait, yellow.